Golly gee.
Okay, we are live.
Okay. We are reconvening to open session at 5:51 p.m. At this point, I'd like to report that no actions were taken in closed session. And I'd like to invite everyone to rise and salute for the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute and pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, I would like to invite comments and announcements by board members. Sharon, do you have any comments or announcements to make today?
No announcements, but I'm pleased to see so many people participating and look forward to hearing from them later on in the meeting.
Thank you. Jessica, do you have any comments or announcements?
Not today.
Thank you. Pamela, do you have anything for us today?
None for me today, thank you.
How are you today, Bill?
I am well, thank you. I have no comments, just want to welcome everybody.
Thank you. Indeed, we have a lot of people today. It's a good thing it's a virtual meeting, otherwise we would have no room. Comments and announcements by the administration. Spencer.
Thank you. First of all, welcome everyone. Thank you for participating this evening. I have received about 30 public comments for this evening. So I appreciate all those who got my message and are here to talk about our professional programs moving forward. So with that being said, I do want to say that I've been working with the city and like to thank Bill Lagrone, who is one of our board members and also the city manager. I met with him and our mayor, Chuck Reynolds, and they have offered the City Hall chambers for our next board meeting and board meetings moving forward so that we can be in person. They have all the regulatory plexiglass, electronics, and all the things that they would need to allow us to meet in person so that we can be back together again. So like to thank the city for offering that to us, and also like to share with everyone, like to thank all those people who are been part of our committees for all the different things that we're doing within our district as far as social justice and PBIS and all those other parent meetings. And I'm sure Janet will be talking more about encouraging our families to be part of our LCAP process moving forward as well. So thank you very much.
Spencer, one quick question. When do we have a date as to when we're going to visit the City Hall?
Our next board meeting is going to be, let me look that up real quick. Kim, do you know what our April board meeting is?
It's on Wednesday, April 21st.
Thank you.
I would welcome anybody to come down that would like to tour it, see it, just get a better feel for the facility anytime they like. I'm usually here Monday through Thursday from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. So drop in anytime.
Thank you, Bill. Andrew, do you have any comments or announcements?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Glad to see a lot of faces here. I just wanted to kind of go over some of the things we're doing with our facilities. Tonight, we're going to have an infrastructure modernization and utilities savings request for proposal presentations tonight from two of the different vendors that are proposing. This program is going to be something that will bring energy savings to the district, and then from the energy savings, will give us options to borrow money to do other infrastructure projects. The energy savings would come through putting up solar panels, doing things like replacing old heating and air conditioning systems. And then what we could do with the remaining money are things like roofs, painting, fencing, and improvements in restrooms. We also have other money available for facilities projects. So we have a lot of really cool facilities stuff going on right now. And this is kind of, will be a big step towards getting solar at Oroville City Elementary, which I know has been a priority for the board for a while. And we have spent a lot of time doing energy reduction. We did the 3-phase lighting, LED lighting program to reduce the amount of energy that we use. And now it's time to start looking at what we can do to start producing energy. So it's an exciting time, and I'm looking forward to the presentations.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I don't see Janet on my board. Are you here?
She's here. Hold on, let me get her in. There she is.
Janet, do you have any comments or announcements?
Yes, I would like to talk a little bit about summer school. We've been in the process for the last couple months of getting a summer school program organized, and we're looking at doing it from June 14th to July 23rd. And in the morning, we'll have academics. We'll be working on math and language arts, and it'll go from 8 to 12:30. Then for a half an hour, they'll have lunch. And then we've paired with BCOE, and they'll be offering a day camp in the afternoon. And that's going to include robotics, coding, art, music, sports activities, and it will have a wide variety of engaging activities for the kids to participate in. And they'll have a choice of coming to summer school in the morning and going home, or they could come and participate in the full day of activities. So we are looking at rolling this out and beginning our registration on March 29th is when they can start to apply for summer school. We're going to be having it at 3 sites. We're looking at Central Middle School, at Wyandotte, and Ophir. And we are hoping to fill up the camp and that we have great interest. As I said, we're going to open registration on March 29th, and it will go all the way through May 14th. And then from May 14th to June 14th, that will give us enough time to reposition any staffing we may need to do based on enrollment. So we're excited about it. We hope a lot of kids come. We have a lot of great, fun, engaging activities planned for them. And we have some very targeted instruction that we're doing, and we'll be doing some pre and post tests to look and measure the growth to see how effective the summer program was as well. And I have a team of teachers that are helping me with creating their pre-post assessments and getting us focused on some key standards. So looking forward to it and appreciate the teachers who've already invested time in working with me on getting this up and going, as well as the district office staff and all their support in getting the program moving forward. So yeah, excited about summer school.
Nice. Thank you, Janet. Congratulations on that achievement. Kimberly Tyler, do you have any announcements or comments for us?
Yes, I'm happy to say that the extended school year for our students with intensive support needs for special education, that will be in person this year. We had to be virtual last year. That will run from June 9th through 25th. And Janet and I are working hand in hand to make sure that the students with more intensive needs will be properly served at the Sierra del Oro site.
That's excellent news. Thank you. At this time, we would like to invite interested parties to speak on matters which are school related. Comments and questions may also be emailed to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last names in your emails. Comments and questions received will be read into the record and or addressed during the meeting. However, comments received without the sender's name cannot be shared during this meeting. The Brown Act does not allow the governing board to discuss or take any action on any item that is not posted on the agenda. Spencer, here we have a lot of things to say.
So good evening. Andrew, would you like to take this time to kind of roll out our time as well as the format for this evening's public comment.
Yeah, so Spencer's going to read any emails that are emailed to the backpack@ocesd.net email. If you'd like to have a public comment tonight, you raise your hand and then you'll be called on. I can see we have one person with their hand raised already. I do have a timer that's going to be a 3-minute timer. Since we have a lot of people, we want to make sure everybody has a chance to say what they need to say. So I will, it'll be in the Zoom there. I can see it now. It's got to reset it. But there will be a timer that'll click down the 3 minutes. So if you want to start with the emailed in questions, and then we can get to the live attendees.
Perfect. I also have all the emails that people have sent directly to me that, as I shared last night on my parent link that I sent out to all the parents. And I also have several that I received at the 5 o'clock hour, and I'll also be reading those into the record as well. I have about 4 of those, but currently I have about 30 public comments. So just bear with me as I read through these. Most of them are short, but some of them are a little bit longer. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And the ones that I currently have that I received prior to the 5 o'clock hour, they are in alphabetical order, so that no particular order. This is from a parent, Desiree Acton. It is imperative that our children get back in school full-time 5 days a week. This shutdown has been detrimental to our youth. My child is at a critical development age, and she is suffering from lack of interaction with peers and teachers. The hybrid model is not good enough. We need our children to be back in school all day, Monday through Friday. Please do what is right for our youth and vote yes to a full-time, everyday, weekday model. Attendance is dismal and grades are lackluster. It's evident the hybrid model is less than ideal. Please do what is right for the children of Oroville. They need to be back in school for in-person learning. Thank you, Desiree Acton. Next one is from Yelena Abarkov. Dear board members, I am a parent of a student at Ophir Elementary, a full-time working mother of 3 children, ages 4 through 7, and I represent a household of 2 full-time working parents. My husband and I had to work through the entire pandemic full-time as we work in food production and healthcare. We've been juggling distance learning, hybrid schedules, and working full-time just like thousands of other working parents in our community, and we have reached our limit. We never denied the existence of this virus or the severe health complications it can potentially pose to some people. We completely understand that we have firsthand that preventative measures like masks work. The struggle of parents, kids, and our community caused by school closures are real and cannot be ignored any longer. For our family, distance learning has simply not worked. Having listened to the majority of the previous board meetings, I did not hear a single valid reason against a full reopening. Going back to normal would not be a disruption, as it was indicated by some board members during the last meeting. Going back to normal is exactly what our kids need. Fear-driven comments, reasoning from people that are still choosing to isolate should not be the basis for closing our schools. Instead, science and vast depths of knowledge we have about this virus should drive our decision now. For those who question if it's worth changing things with only a few weeks of school left, have obviously never fully understand how much kids can learn and grow in a short time. Every day counts. Learning loss is real, and getting kids back to full-time instruction immediately is not an option, but your duty. Various after-school and summer school programs are appreciated, yet they are merely a Band-Aid solution. Regarding vaccinations, foreclosure is unethical in our opinion. High-risk students, staff, and students can continue to choose distance teaching learning, and that group should not rob us of our choice to choose what is right for our kids. Give parents back the power to make the right decision for our kids. Last year, the board and administration took a leap of faith and did the right thing by opening our schools with the hybrid schedule, while other districts just decided to stay closed. We appreciate all the work the administration and the teachers did to make this happen for our kids. Now with cases and deaths dropping nationwide and Butte County, I hope our current board also leads the way. just like many other districts in the area, and return our kids back to normal. Once again, I plead with you to return our schools to a traditional full-time model immediately this school year. The school board is the only governing body we have that is supposed to put the interests of kids above all others. Data and science, and not politics or union interests, should drive your decision. I sincerely hope that you hear and do what is right for our kids, parents, and our community. Sincerely, Yelena Argakov. This message is from Nina Bates. Hello, I'm writing you in regards to school opening up full time. I'm not against school opening, but not at this time. I believe it will be unfair to the students and teachers if there would be change made. I feel that we need to keep it just the way it is till next semester. I'm also worried about all the new cases that will show up with more kids at school. It was just on the news about the new virus hitting Butte County. This will be a bad call to open up schools by the end of the month just for money. Thank you for taking the time to read this email. Sincerely, Nina Bates. Ashley Bolstead, 8th grade teacher, Ishii Hills Middle School. I have concern about returning to another classroom model after spring break. Right now, with our hybrid program, we are fluctuating in and out of distance learning on a regular basis. Our families are not taking COVID regulation to heart, and the result is an entire grade level or more quarantined. After every break, we can see an increase of students needing to quarantine. We've been fortunate with such small classes, we've been able to mitigate the spread. I'm concerned that bringing all the students back and filling our classrooms will put everyone at risk. It's often difficult to adequately distance now with 15 students in a classroom. Filling classrooms will make it even more difficult. I'm as enthused as anyone to return to normalcy. I miss the kids, the kinds of activities that you can do when kids can share materials, and the conversations you can have when classes are full. But the reality is, we are not in a normal time. It is our responsibility to regulate the potential risk to our community as much as we can. In addition to this worry about the timing of bringing everyone back, in a typical school year, you take the first few weeks to observe student interaction and develop relationships and strategies on how to manage the group. Throughout the year, you'll get new students and they'll work their way into the group and find their role. But a community will have been built, and that's when real learning can take place. When you mix together multiple groups, that process will start all over again. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sure, we'll be on better ground than we were in August, but we'll still have to rebuild that community. We cannot do that and administer state testing simultaneously. When we ask ourselves what is best for kids, yes, being back at school is ideally best, but our kids need consistency. Is being back at school best? When they will be asked to quarantine from one day to the next? Is being back at school best when you're being asked to take a stressful test while surrounded by virtual strangers? I wish to maintain the current schedule because right now, this is what is normal. Mrs. Ashley Bolstead, 8th grade math, Ishii Hills Middle School. Dear Dr. Holtum, in light of the governor's speech last week regarding full reopening of schools, it is my hope that you will take the recommendation to the governing board that the district move in the direction of full reopening during the 2021 school year. I've been following the board meeting over the past several months, and I'm dismayed by teacher complaints and teacher union negotiation discord. Student well-being and getting all students back in the classroom 5 days a week should be top priority. Our teachers have had the opportunity to be vaccinated and should provide them security and peace of mind to safely return and continue their good work. However, I think they are forgetting our economy and community is struggling. Everyone needs to get back to work to aid in its recovery before union negotiations can become top priority. I view the chance for a full reopening of schools to give teachers a chance to continue their good work to bridge the learning gaps that are clearly evident in my children. Over the last weekend, a popular Telegram Tribune columnist and mom, Sandy Hunt Burns, published the column that I'm including at the end of this message for you to read. Ms. Hunt Burns' statement echoes my feelings on the debates over school reopening, what is safe, what is not. However, the last sentence sums it all up. I look forward to hearing the board discussion at its meeting tomorrow night. Sincerely, Marissa Brower, Gifford, and I will read that last sentence as this is a very long article. Thank you. Next one is from Rachel Bryson. Hello, I'm writing you this email in regards to my opinion for the schedule of school. As a mother employee of the district, I am pro 5 days a week in-person learning. Some key points I have noticed from just the return of 2 days with my two third grade daughters, how happy they are to see their friends, teachers, and staff members. The socialization and the feeling of being at school has been huge. They have never struggled in school, always had excellent report cards, and with distance learning received a C. With the return of 2 days a week, she will be able to bring that C all the way up to an A. I believe that with the correct protocols, we can still remain safe and be at school 5 days a week. Thank you, Rachel Bryson. Hello, my name is Bethany Busby, and I have two children attending Ophir School. This distance learning hybrid schedule is a joke. How are our children who are our future supposed to get the proper education they need, as well as social skills to succeed in life and be the future we need them to be? Can we please get back to full in-person learning? Our children's life literally depend on it. If not, there will be a lot of uneducated, unsocial children running the world, and that scares me more than the virus. Thank you for your time, Bethany Busby. Muna Calarco. Teacher, Stanford Elementary. Dear members of the board, I'm writing once again to urge you to vote to continue with our current offering of hybrid learning, distance learning, and independent study. I urge this for several reasons, including a lack of ability to provide social distancing, continuity, safety, and OCESD having not provided an accurate explanation of the possible side effects of changing to parents. Currently, the CDC is recommending that students maintain a social distance of 4 to 6 feet. My classroom is approximately 25 by 25 feet and consists of a combination of double desks and tables for the students to sit at. My Tuesday, Thursday cohort has 14 students in it. It is currently difficult to have 14 students maintain social distance. I am not sure how I'm going to be able to do it with my full class of 22 students. Remember that students need to be able to do more than just sit at the desk. They need to move around a classroom and interact with each other. The logistics of merely lining up to go outside are going to be difficult to navigate, much less all the myriad of activities that students engage in during 6 hours together. Is the district going to create smaller class sizes? Will they provide single desks? Many of our classrooms at Stanford Avenue School have close to 30 students in them. This will likely have to change, especially in the lower grades. This will potentially cause a whole domino effect in classrooms. As teachers, we have worked together to develop relationships with our kids. It saddens me to think that some of my students will suffer the trauma of changing to another classroom in an effort to go back to normal during a time that is anything but. Our county is still in the purple tier rating for COVID infections. It was recently announced the variant of COVID found in the United Kingdom is now in Butte County. Yes, most of us teachers have been vaccinated, but what is our general population? We don't know if or how quickly the variant will spread. We also know for certain the effectiveness of the vaccine on these new variants. Do we really want to take the risk? Finally, our district did not do an adequate job of informing parents of the ramifications of going back to full in-person. In the survey that was sent out to parents, there was no mention of the possibility of students having to move classrooms, nor did it address the issue of busing. Are parents going to have to provide transportation, or are busing going to be running as they had pre-pandemic? We've been told that surrounding districts are returning to in-person learning. This is true for some, such as Palermo, but other districts such as Chico have opted to continue with their current models. What really stands out to me is a different approach taken by our district in Palermo. Below is a survey sent out to Palermo parents. Please read it. It fully outlines the effect of parent choice and forcing them to acknowledge the ramifications of their choices. The one put out by OCESD did not address any of these issues. I realize that we all want life to go back to normal, but I say that it is better to ride out this year doing what we're currently doing. Let us use our time to plan and strategize for next year. Let us write the grants for smaller class sizes, hire the reading specialists and extra aides, and do all the things that we know will be good for our students. Let's not cram 20 or more wiggly students into a classroom for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, expecting them to wear masks that are difficult to breathe and talk in. Then expect them to sit at their desk, never getting near the person that is sharing the same 4 feet long double desk. And rushing back, we are creating a stressful learning environment that will not be in the students' best interest. Please consider continuing with what we are doing for the good of our students. She also includes the survey for Palermo, but I do not have enough time to read the entire thing. To whom it may concern, my children are so ready to go back full time. They need more in-person and learning with their teachers and peers. They don't mind wearing masks still. We all want them to go back in person learning 5 days a week. Thank you, Heather Goff. Dear OCESD School Board, I'm sending this email to support the return to full-time learning. Over this year, I've noticed a giant improvement in my child's learning ability and retention on the limited return versus the full-time distance learning, not to mention the necessary interactions with other children. Paul Gordano. Hello, Mr. Holton. We are responding to your invitation to comment on the planned return to full schedule grade school. We have one student attending Oakdale Heights Elementary, and we are highly supportive of a full return to school. As parents of 3 school-age children, we have a firsthand experience of the emotional, social, and even physical distress that has been caused by this event, and we feel that a return to school would provide a much more pleasant experience for our children. It would also build confidence, reestablish routine, and satisfy children's need for a quality education, companionship, and peer acknowledgement. We are aware that other schools in the region are open, and have confidence in the school staff to continue healthy protocols. We feel that there should be no reason why we couldn't open our school at this time. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Jared Haas. Dear Dr. Holton and OCESD Board of Trustees, my name is Heather Hoffman. I'm the mother of Taylor Hoffman, and my child is a 4th grader at Ophir Elementary School. I'm writing to express my concern on continuing the hybrid model school schedule. With the students having the opportunity to attend school in person only 2 days a week, I'm concerned about the quality of education and the amount of support our kids are getting. Keeping kids on this hybrid schedule is hurting the most valuable kids in our district. First of all, I want to say what a wonderful job our elementary schools have done at trying to keep kids interested in learning during these trying times. This isn't about discrediting any of their effort or saying they aren't doing enough. I know there are many teachers who want to get back to a traditional schedule and know it is better for kids to be back full time and are only following the instructions given. What I am concerned about is the letter from teachers at the last board meeting. A lot of them voiced concerns of getting COVID themselves or spreading it to family members as a reason to continue the hybrid learning model. There are thousands of people who have had no other choice but to continue to work during the entire lockdown. I am certain that most of these employees have their loved ones they are concerned for also. Most retail employees will see more customers in a day than our teachers will see students in a week. I fear their family members are equally important as a teacher. I'm also aware of teachers going against CDC guidelines and attending social activities with people who are not members of their households, all while using fear of COVID as a reason to not return to a traditional school schedule. It is complete hypocrisy. Unless they are following the COVID precautionary guidelines 100%, they should not be allowed to use fear as a reason. As school board members, it is your duty to make sure the school districts are responsive to the priorities of the community. The people elected you to represent us and our children. Our children need you now. They need you to advocate for them, to fight for them, and to get them back into the classroom more than 2 days a week. The forgotten kids need you. Remember that for some of them, school is the only place they feel safe or get fed. As of March 1st, there are only 7 states with school closure orders still in effect, and yet we are not heard of COVID numbers rising because of school openings. Many other districts and surrounding communities have opened up without any spikes of COVID cases, and so should we. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Heather Hoffman. I wanted to inquire that even if the district goes back to school full-time in the spring, is there an option to complete the remainder of this year at distance learning? I believe that it is in the best interest of my child to complete the school year this way. She's autistic, and the change back directly before the school ends will drastically affect her in a negative way. She needs to have as minimal change as possible for her mental health, including distance learning, her teacher, etc. She already changed teachers this year, and previously she underwent several changes in teachers in the previous school year. This is not an option. What other options do we have, such as extended leave, learning models, or the like? Thanks in advance for your help, Victoria Holloway. Good evening. I have 2 children who attend Stanford Avenue Elementary. We have been involved in the hybrid option for a few months now. While we sincerely appreciate the efforts made by staff to provide as much instruction as possible, our family feels as though a full return to in-person learning is the best scenario. My youngest is in kindergarten and has extreme difficulty with distance learning. He does not have the skills that most students have learned previously that allow him to sit still and focus on any duration of time. He does exceptionally well in the classroom, but it's easily distracted and disagreeable when at home because he wants to play with his toys or the dog. My 3rd grader has done okay on distance learning, but is seriously lacking in social development. He misses his friends and everything that in-person instruction allows. He also has difficulty in getting the teacher's attention when there's something that he does not understand. This applies to the distance learning only, as he is easily able to gain our attention in person. Since we are moving to a better position than we have ever been during this pandemic, our family respectfully requests that the school board allow our children to return to full-time in-person instruction as soon as possible. Thank you, Valerie and Chuck Hughes. Good evening, OCESD board members. My name is Jennifer Just. My son Riker is a 4th grader at Ophir. Riker is currently on the Monday-Wednesday hybrid schedule, which means that he gets less class time than his Tuesday-Thursday peers. This unstable schedule, lack of communication, excuse me,
Tried to go into sleep mode.
This unstable schedule, lack of communication, and numerous policy changes have caused our children to become emotional, sensitive, and fragile. I am positive that we are not the only family who is struggling with this schedule. The lack of teacher class time cannot possibly be seen as adequate in the eyes of our educators and the OCESD board. How are these children expected to do state testing with inadequate education? Our community is underserved as it is. There are so many children in the community that are falling through the cracks, that we are failing. Parents are doing the best to maintain their jobs and pull together to help each other out, but it's not enough. I want to believe that our school district is doing their best, but I feel that not all of you have a personal understanding of what it's like for our children and our families. My child is fully aware that his best friend who attends a nearby school is back at school full-time and has been for months. He does not understand why. He sees the science, he sees the precautions taken, and is stuck wondering why his education isn't as important as another child in our community. It's incredibly frustrating to hear that 70% of teachers do not want to go back this year. The most frustrating part of this is the why. Why do they not want to go back? Is it because they're scared of getting sick or spreading it to their families? If that's the case, are they following protocols in every other aspect of their lives? Or is it just their job that they're worried about? As an employee that has worked every day along with thousands of other employees across the state since the beginning of the pandemic, I find this to be incredibly insulting. Do they not want to go back because the district isn't providing the support they need? Is the district communicating with the teachers what their options are? Is the district working with them to see what is best and how to best make it work? What is it that we as parents can do to support them? Do they need larger classrooms? Do they need more desk dividers, hand sanitizer? I feel that most teachers are getting a bad rap because no one is telling the parents what the stumbling block is. What is the why, and how can we help fix it? Why is it that other surrounding districts have been able to figure this out and ours can't? We have a school board president that sits in the dark during a meeting with the parents and other community members watching. Why? This is
I don't
completely
have enough light.
This is completely unprofessional. She should be setting the tone for the meetings for other board members and the parents. She is literally in the dark. After hearing letters from teachers requesting a 4-day work week, Fridays being a teacher prep day, I shut the meeting off. The district couldn't be bothered to move the minimum day schedule to Fridays when students were already not in school. Now there's a request for a 4-day work week. Why? Will OCESD be eliminating the excessive amount of minimum days to balance that out? If parents knew the whys, we could help solve your problems, and just maybe there would be less anger directed at our educators and the board. There are so many of us that are willing to do whatever it takes to get our kids back into school and help them recover from the trauma that this is causing. Let us help you. I'd really like to see more communication from the OCSD board about the options in play and what the issues are. These students need to be in school 5 days a week full time. I feel it is our best option for students. Jennifer Just. Emily Lamb, teacher, Central Middle School. To whom it may concern, as I sit here in the safety of my own home, I know I'm lucky to have the opportunity to work from home. As I sit here debating how to start this letter, there are so many feelings that come up when I think about returning to school. I would like to voice my opinion in opposition to going back to full-time in-person school. While my heart wants to be in the classroom with our students, my mind has other thoughts. This is the second letter that I've written to the board voicing my opinion. So my apologies if some of this may sound redundant. I'm a cautious person by nature, so navigating a global pandemic has been beyond stressful. Adding to this, the birth of my first child has been an overwhelming journey, to say the least. I'm very fortunate that I have had the opportunity to be completely isolated for the past year. I know that I'm in a privileged position. My husband and I are both able to work from home, and my parents are retired so they can help with our daughter. Due to these circumstances, I feel it's my duty to remain isolated so that there's no possibility of contracting or spreading the virus. My family has made huge sacrifices, like everyone has made, to maintain this isolation. I have not been to a grocery store in over 8 months. My daughter's other grandmother is unable to see her, and I have even stopped going on walks with friends. To some, this may sound extreme, but to me, it's my reality. My daughter has never been anywhere besides the doctor and has only been held by 5 people. I tell you all this to say that, in my opinion, reopening schools would be detrimental to so many families, including mine. It would affect my family because we would no longer be able to stay isolated. I feel fortunate that I received my vaccine, but it has not changed my life, my way of life. I continue to be isolated from my daughter and my husband, who have not been able to get the vaccine yet. If I were asked to go back to school, I would be worried every day that I could possibly bring the virus home to them. Now, this isn't just about me. My concern is for the safety of our students and their families as well. I know that I have students online who also get their groceries delivered so they can avoid going to the store. I know I have students online who are unable to see their grandparents due to the fear of spreading the virus. If they were expected to go back to school, it would completely disrupt their effort to maintain a social distance and stay isolated. We are already in the 4th and final quarter of the school year. Not only is the safety of our students in jeopardy, but this sounds like a logistical nightmare. I'm one of the 2 distance learning teachers for 6th grade. We have students from both Ishii and Central. If we were asked to return to school, who would I teach? Would I go back to Central and have a new class? What does that look like? Starting a new class at the end of the school year? Where do I begin teaching? I hope that you can hear my fear and trepidation in this letter. I want you to also hear my hope. I'm hopeful for next school year. I'm hopeful to be in my classroom the day school starts and greet my students with a smile that I hope will not be covered with a mask. I'm hopeful that one day my students can sit in groups again and share manipulatives without worry. We have all been through so much this year. I'm hopeful we can end the school year the way it is now and start fresh for the upcoming school year. Thank you for your time and consideration. Emily Lamb, distance learning teacher. Dear OCESD board, I'm writing this letter to express my support for school to return to a 5-day-a-week in-person learning schedule. I have a first and fourth grader who attend OFER school, and they are in the hybrid schedule. To say that this past year has been challenging would be an understatement. We are two parent household where both parents are required to work full-time, otherwise the bills will not get paid. I am thankful that my employer has allowed me to work from home on the days that my kids are not in school. With that being said, it's extremely difficult to teach a first and fourth grader while caring for a 4-year-old and working full-time. There are numerous times that I've had to tell my kids that I'm not able to help them with their schoolwork because I have to work. As other parents have stated, the relationship with my kids have changed. The days at home are no longer enjoyable because it's filled with constant argument and crying over schoolwork. My first grader logs on to his class for 15 minutes on the day that he is home. The rest of the day is on me to make sure he is doing his work. His teacher has also decided not to have class on Friday. He can't read, struggles with the sight words, and yet the expectation is to move him along to second grade. Vaccines continue to be distributed, and Butte County is now moving into the red tier. Therefore, the board should move forward with reopening. Numerous states and even other districts within our county have been in school full-time and have been making it work. So I don't understand why we can't look at them as a model and make it work for our district. Comments made at the last board meeting have me very concerned about being able to return full-time next school year. A board member stated her concern for not returning to full-time in-person learning is because there are no vaccines for children under 16. No research on if the vaccines help against the new variants, and no research on if you can still carry COVID after having the vaccine. I'm worried that come August, parents are going to be left with a continuing list of excuses as to why school can't return to full-time in-person learning. I feel that a return to full-time in-person learning should not be negotiable for next year, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can to ensure the kids are able to return next year. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. Sincerely, Jenny McDonald. Angie Marino. Hello, my name is Angie Marino, and I'm a parent of 2 students at Stanford Avenue Elementary School. I stay home most of the days with my kids and also work 2 days a week in private practice as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I know this is an important evening for our district as we finish out the 2021 school year. I'm sure you have all greatly debated and considered how you will vote about students returning to school 5 days a week. This is a very hard decision, and I know none of you take this lightly. Because of surveys and public comment, it seems clear that you have been advised how parents and teachers feel about going back to school. It is divided. You have also been advised of the science and the numbers and what authorities say about kids going back to school. You've been given information about what is happening to children at home who are not in school. You have everything you need to make an informed decision. I obtained the mission and vision statement of the district. I would ask that you please sift through all opinions, information, and experience you have and vote according to these statements only. Mission statement: to empower all of our students to be successful, lifelong learners and citizens. Vision: to achieve excellence in education through the success of all of our students and staff. In closing, I would ask you again to please vote along the lines of these statements. These are what you are responsible for. These are many facets of the coronavirus and how it affects everyone, but your job is to think only about all students and staff and their success. Thank you for your time and your hard work. Sincerely, Angie Marino. Dear Superintendent and OCESD board members, I am writing this letter to plead with our district to please reopen OCESD schools and bring back children to a full-time in-person instruction model. I am the mother of a 4th grade student at Ophir Elementary School and a current employee for Ophir as well. My 2 oldest daughters both attended Ophir and look back fondly at their time on these fantastic teachers. My family loves this little Orville school district and our whole Ophir family. I have always been the biggest supporter of our teachers. When we had the chance to transfer out to a smaller school system, we stayed loyal to our district and continued their education, all while many families left. 1 year ago, at the beginning of COVID-19, I was quick to organize a stay home, stay safe photo for our school teachers and social media outlets. I worked tirelessly behind the scenes during this last year to help out every way possible and continue to do so for the safety of our students and staff. With that being said, my number one priority is being my son's advocate. At this time, I believe our district can safely reopen. I heard a great and true statement about our heroic teachers. Our children teachers are our frontline essential workers to education. We can do this. Keeping schools closed to full-time in-person instruction is more dangerous than reopening to our community. My son's pediatrician has told me countless times he recommends fully for our schools to reopen. So many children are at risk. The mental health and safety of our kids in our district needs to be accounted for. The children to adult transmission is not a significant factor to keep our schools closed. Our district staff all have had the opportunity to get their first and second vaccinations. We were moved ahead in line for the vaccinations even before my 65-year-old mother. I have heard from too many parents to mention that transferring from our district will happen if we do not return to a full-time schedule. All of our friends and family from out of this school district are back to full-time in-person instruction, and many have benefited from a full-time, meaningful education since the beginning of the 2021 school year. They have successfully worked together with their community. Please consider all these concerns that we have addressed in your decision to reopen our school district, and let's work together to make this happen for our children. Respectfully, Leanne Mello, Ophir Elementary School. Hello, my household is in full support of opening the school back full time. The data supports it in our community, and our county has just reached a less restricted tier. Most importantly, the children's mental health needs to be considered just as strongly as their potential exposure to COVID. Being back to school 5 days and some sense of normalcy will help them get back into a normal routine. Shelley Murray, parent. Please read an open session. As a parent and community member, I urge you to consider staying on the hybrid model. I understand the desire to come back for social needs, daycare, and even the dreaded state testing. However, I just can't imagine sending my children back. Not all teachers have gotten or want to get vaccinated. Definitely not the general population. Please consider waiting until fall for full reopening or even days of classroom packed with students. Are there any additional safety measures being put in place? As of now, classrooms aren't being cleaned every day. This is a fact. What guarantee will we have of safety measures truly being put in place? Is distance learning by still an option? A very concerned parent and community member, Shaza Nassar. Good evening. I wrote a detailed letter during the last meeting regarding the learning model for the remainder of the 2021 school year. In my opinion, we need to provide consistency for our students to make as much growth as possible for the remainder of the school year. We should not return to a full-time in-person learning model until next year. In addition, the survey the district sent out to parents asking them to choose a learning model was not informative. Parents need to be informed of the possible options and acknowledge what could happen depending on the learning model they choose. It is not in the best interest of students to change their learning model, teachers, and possibly even their school sites for just 8 weeks of school. I also wanted to encourage you to adopt option B for the calendar for next year. This calendar is the most similar to our current calendar. The February break is so necessary for staff and students to have time to rest and come back eager to work hard for the last semester. Thank you, Amy Nelms, Stanford Avenue School, Room 4, second grade teacher. My name is Amber Patton, and I am a parent of 3 children currently participating in the hybrid model with the district. I'm also a staff member at Stanford Avenue Elementary. In my opinion, we should stay in the hybrid model and finish the year out. I have seen progress lately in the children's learning. They are feeling better about learning and are more confident and comfortable. We have been consistent, therefore they are able to grow. I'm concerned that with another change, the students' forward progress will be stalled yet again. I am also concerned that with fuller class sizes, we will be unable to meet the current safety guidelines in place, specifically social distancing. I realize not all families are having the same experience with distance learning, and that is tough. I feel extremely lucky that while we don't do it perfectly at home, my child My children are learning and in some cases excelling. I'm extremely disturbed, however, with the idea that if we do open full-time, some students will lose their teachers. For my children, that would be extremely detrimental to their emotional health due to the fact that they have important relationships with them that have made it possible to feel supported so they can be ready to learn. I'm not sure I would put them through that so close to the end of the school year. I know this decision is not taken lightly and there are many things to consider. Thank you for your time. Amber Patton, Parent Instructional Aide, Stanford. Dear Superintendent and Board of Trustees, I'm writing to you to ask you please reopen OCESD schools and allow our children to return to full-time in-person learning. We are quickly approaching the 1-year mark of public school closures. Throughout the pandemic, you have stressed the importance of following the science and data. The science shows we can reopen safely with proper mitigation measures in place. Data shows that COVID-19 daily cases are declining, and with the available vaccination, I anticipate this improving trend to continue. The time to reopen school is now. Students do not have a union, lobbyist, or advocacy organizations backing them, but they do have their parents who are witnessing firsthand the negative impacts of school closure. My letter is in no way to degrade or demean everything teachers are doing and have done for our students to this point. However, despite our teachers' heroic efforts, distance learning does not meet most students' social, emotional, psychological, or educational needs. Again, this is no fault of the teachers, but the nature of the subpar learning model being followed. It leaves behind some of our most vulnerable students, and I feel it's violating students' constitutional rights to an equitable education. Many schools in our surrounding areas are opening or have been opened. I understand the most recent is Palermo District. Unfortunately, they are only going to school until 12:45. While I appreciate their efforts, I do not feel this is enough time in the classroom for a proper education. If OCESD did the same, that is only 8 more hours per week that the student will be back in class. This does not account for recess and transition time. Our students need to be back in school full-time every day, 8:20 to 2:40. Please, let's work together to come up with a systematic plan and help our children back in school full-time. Respectfully, Betty Pendergraft. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. I have 2 sons currently enrolled in Ophir Elementary. Wyatt is now 5th grade and has been at Ophir since TK. Riley has started his first year as a kindergarten. The first day of 5th and kinder should have been a very special, exciting day. I had explained to them that it will be online learning, but my kinder did not grasp that concept. He got up that morning and did his hair and brushed his teeth and picked out his clothes only to have sit in front of a screen, and he was heartbroken. Riley has struggled a great deal trying to learn by computer. My 5th grader was explaining how he felt, and I realized he was explaining anxiety, which he has been struggling with all year, which he did not have before this year. One night, Wyatt came to me telling me he was depressed, and he's only 11. He has always been on the honor roll, but he has been struggling this year, as have many children. This has been hard on everyone. My husband and I have been essential workers, so we've still been working out of the home full time. I was very lucky to have a mother-in-law who stepped in to help, but is now unable to continue watching them. It has been extremely stressful on her trying to figure out all of the tech and trying to keep 2 kids who are on 2 totally different education levels and schedules on track. The stress of worrying about their education and who will be able to stay with them during the day and help them with online learning has been overwhelming, not to mention how difficult it is to have a children 5-year-old learn online. The 2 days a week have been a great help and I can see progress, but we need to get these kids back into school, not only for their educational needs, but their mental well-being. I understand how serious COVID is considering I work for the hospital, but I also see how this has taken a toll on the children not being in school. I'm not in a position to stay home and homeschool them. I'm afraid they will not be where they need to be for next year unless we get them back in full time and hopefully get caught up. Thank you, Noel Snow. Dear members of the board, district office, and community, I've written several letters this year, the most I've ever felt the need to write. As decisions are being made regarding our school model for the remainder of the year, I feel compelled to have my questions and concerns regarding changing course after spring break known. I feel we should remain in the hybrid model because it seems premature to go into a full model while we are still vaccinating and while variants pose new and unforeseen threats. I feel the disruption is difficult for the schools to implement safety precautions, and the families and teachers have finally figured this method out. With that being said, I know people are itching to get back to normal. Nothing is normal at this point, and I don't want to see us slide backwards. If the board decides to go back to a more traditional model, I hope these considerations are made. Numbers, keeping them low helps everyone stay safe. What does the health department say the limit should be? Keeping the students low will help all students be more successful. SDC students and Gen Ed time staying under the health department limit so these students can maintain their Gen Ed teachers and experiences, which are so vital to their success. DOJ training. If we are 5 days a week, how will we get these completed? Lunch, especially on rainy days with all the students back on campus, I see this being an issue. Drop off and pick up zones, should there be staggering times so everyone is not in these zones at the same time? Buses, what is the high school doing? If our schedule is different than the high school, how much will that cost us? This seems like an issue for our schedule, for other schedulings. In closing, I'd like this discussion to be focused on the starting of next year so we are truly ready with qualified staff to support all the needs of the students as they deal with their traumatic and academic issues that will certainly be present. Changing everything for at least 8 weeks of school seems like another disruption and too much change for an already weary clientele. Thank you, Shelley Stewart, STC teacher, Stanford Avenue. Hello, I fully support our kids going back to school in person full time. I have one child at Ophir and one child at Ishii Hills. They have been struggling on distance learning days and they do much better on the days they are at school. Kids need to see their friends and they need to get back to normal. Please consider moving to full-time in-person school. Thank you, Jennifer Villay. To whom it may concern, I'm a registered nurse for OCESD, and I'm sending this letter in support of reopening our schools and allowing our students to resume a normal academic life. We all know too well the devastating effects the coronavirus has had on our families, our friends, and our communities. For the past 16 plus months, we have been shut off from the world we are used to. We have hidden behind masks and shields. We have kept others at arm's length, and we have redefined the way we interact with family and friends. This has come at a great cost, especially to our students. The science is there and cannot be disputed. We are seeing a growing number of school-age kids who are experiencing depressive and anxiety disorders, and suicide rates are on the rise. Please remember that for many of our students, school is the one place that offers structure, support, guidance, social interaction, familiarity, and even food. I believe it is imperative that we act now. Our students are counting on us to put their needs first, and the best way we do that is by opening our schools to all of our students. I realize Butte County remains in the purple, but if you look at the numbers, you will see that our COVID cases are declining. In the past week, the total number of confirmed cases is the lowest it's been, 72 since July 2021. Furthermore, the combined total COVID cases from birth to age 17 years is significantly lower than most of the other age groups. I have documented proof that from the more than 200 contact tracings I've conducted that our students are not contracting COVID from school. They are getting it from home. The COVID vaccine has been made available to all of our school staff, and everyone who wanted to be vaccinated has been. For anyone still wanting to be vaccinated, Butte County Public Health has alternate vaccination sites available. 14 days following the second vaccination, the person is considered immune. This means that for many of our vaccinated staff who come in contact with a COVID positive person, the staff person is immune and would not have to quarantine. Additionally, given that the vaccine has been and continues to be available to anyone wanting it, choosing to not be vaccinated should not be a reason to keep our kids out of school. Finally, we will continue to follow the guidelines to ensure the health and well-being of our students and staff. Everyone on campus will be required to wear a mask except when eating. All staff and students will be required to adhere to the social distancing guidelines. We will continue to check the temperature of all staff and students, and anyone with a verified temperature of 104 or greater will be sent home. We will continue our current progress for all students who are absent. At this time, for any student who misses school, the health aide calls home to find out why. This is our opportunity to touch bases with the student, with the parent, and get specific information as to why the student is not in school. For any student identified as being sick, the health aide asks the COVID screening questions for Tier 1 and Tier 2. Based on the responses, the student is allowed to return to school when they have recovered from their illness, or they will be asked to get tested for the coronavirus. Thank you for consideration. Terry Woods, District Nurse, RN. And I believe that I have, that's the ones that I have that I printed off before the 5 o'clock hour. I have some in my email that I will read, and then we can take public comment from those who have their hands up. Dear Spencer, my name is Megan Rowe. My daughter Piper Rowe is a kindergarten at Ophir Elementary School. I'm writing to you in regards of how badly these students need to be in school full time. These kids are struggling mentally and some kids physically. To some of these kids, school is their safe place. Parents are struggling mentally trying to teach their kids when we aren't teachers, me included in that. I can't even begin to tell you because of distance learning and these kids not being in school full time. My relationship has changed with my daughter tremendously, and her attitude in general has changed. My daughter is the sweetest girl and never gives any attitude about anything until she started hybrid school distance learning. And I'm not just saying she's sweet because she's my daughter. We aren't teachers. I can't help her like her teacher can. I've tried, but I'm not going to sacrifice my relationship with her. My daughter was so eager to learn and so excited about school when it was starting in June. Then when it was over the computer, she immediately hated it. It's a struggle even getting her to do her homework packets that are 10 plus pages a night following boom cards she has to do online. Not to mention, I have 2 other kids that I'm taking care of and working full time. These kids are supposed to be our future, and how are they going to have a future if they aren't in school full time? Many schools around us have gone back to full in-person learning. Other schools around us are even back to 5 days a week with an early dismissal. Why can't we find some solution for these kids to get the proper education they need? I hope that they can find some way for these kids to get back to full in-person learning. Our kids need it. Sincerely, Megan Rowe. To whom it may concern, this year my oldest is in 1st grade. Last year she was excited to go to school, see his friends and learn. This year his confidence has declined rapidly. His excitement is no longer there. His attitude is somebody I don't even recognize, and the teachers are now concerned he's dyslexic. The school can't do much more for his education at this time since this district is only allowing children on campus twice a week. These poor kids miss their friends, and some have forgotten how to socialize since the new is strictly staring them in a screen every day. Full-time in-person is necessary for our children's mental health and to succeed in the future. As a parent who is concerned for their children's education and mental health, please allow traditional full-time in-person. I asked my boys what they want when it comes to school, and they said, I want to go back every day so I can learn how to read to my baby sister. Thank you for your time, Heather Nimela. To the board members of the Orville Elementary Unified School District, fellow parents and staff, good evening. I would like to state that I empathize with you for the amounts for the immense amount of stressors this school year has been filled with, and condone you all on your ability to adapt and continue to pursue the best interests of our children's education. That being said, I can't sugarcoat how incredibly frustrating the education options they have been presented with are. Our children are suffering from a lack of peer interaction at the bare minimum. The general conversation that develops while learning next to others is irreplaceable. Instead, they are being asked to sit in front of a screen for hours at a time with their microphones silenced, oftentimes drifting into their own world or distracted by the bustle of an operating home. That's if they are lucky. My children, for example, have been faced with more power outages and internet failures than regular days. Not to mention we were blessed with a new baby during this pandemic, and I'm sure you can hear the disruption of quiet that comes with her. Also, as small business owners, our business suffered due to needing to meet our children's educational need over our operating duties, as well as occasionally their education suffered because we couldn't meet the needs of their teachers' outlined schedule, not to mention the hands-on learning models and adjustments that teachers offer in the classroom that cannot be competed with. Parents could not possibly ever close that gap, given that not only have we not been trained to do so, but we also know children do not take instructions from their parents the same as they do from others. A world where your parent has now become your educator and already oftentimes your coach as well, leaves kids only knowing how to receive criticism, instruction, encouragement, and more in only one way or from one person. That is not conducive to building a prepared adult for the world. Our kids need hands-on education. They need to learn to problem solve, think quickly, adapt, persevere, challenge each other, have discussions, and chase knowledge. They will never get that on Zoom. We will lose the majority. We are losing the majority, politics aside. Along with losing them, we are also losing one of the greatest things this nation stands for. The pursuit of education should be protected beyond measure. We need to ask ourselves, is this really the best we can give our future generations? I could go on, but I will leave this with you. If we cut out all the red tape, what is stopping us from chasing the education that our children have been stripped of? Michelle Henniker. Dear board members, we have an esports game tomorrow at 3:30. All three teams have a game, so Miss Jackson's stream will be jumping around from game to game with an alternative stream for varsity. They are playing a team whose stream is way better than Miss Jackson's. They are playing a team whose stream is way better than Miss Jackson's. Miss Jackson will shoot the link out as soon as she can tomorrow in hopes of getting them on the sites early enough for people to tune in. Kathy McCarthy, 8th grade science teacher, Central Middle School. Good evening, families. This is Aaron Jackson, Central Middle School teacher and esports coach. I'm writing to inform you of something positive going on for our students that you can be a part of. Both Ishii Hills and Central Middle School have been competing in an esports league that incorporates schools from all over the West Coast, including New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and even Alaska. This program started right here in Butte County with Central, Ishii, and a school in Chico. We have grown tenfold, and we are really starting a movement. This program has been such a delight, a bright spot in our students' lives. You can help support or show support to our students athletes by watching our live stream of the game. Matches take place each Thursday around 3:30. A link to our stream on Twitch will be posted on the school website and Facebook pages. Please come and support these kids and cheer them on as they compete. Aaron Jackson, 6th grade, Central Middle School. And I believe I have read everything. Andrew, do you have any parents that have their hands up?
Yeah, I have one. Christy Anglin. You can go ahead and unmute. And
Well, I don't know if I'm a parent, but I'm definitely a community member. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for their comments they've made prior to me, and a lot of great ideas shared tonight. So good evening. I wanted to make my comment actually before closed session, but I wasn't sure if that was the right time. So here I am. I've been contemplating literally for months how I want to address you this evening. I'm Christy Anglin, and I am a teacher and community member in the Orville City Elementary School District since 1988. You have some very important decisions to make tonight and items to digest. And although I do not envy you, this is the role you chose, becoming board members. Two things I would like to comment are on the second interim budget and school reopening. In December, I attended the board meeting to listen to the first interim budget as well as the FICMEC report in January. My observation in December was the size of the reserve from 30% to 12.68% over the next 3 years. In January, my takeaway from the report was we currently don't have a clear picture of what our financial situation actually is until a discussion of compensation between OCESD and OETA is closed. As I study the second interim budget and look at the reserve numbers now, I see projections of 32%, 40%, and 31%. And I can't lie, my jaw dropped when I saw our third year out went from 12.68% to 31%. And I get that numbers and budgets are fluid, but this is more than double than what was projected. And being an OETA unit member, I know we still haven't reached the resolution with the 2019-2020 compensation. So I'm concerned about the actual numbers until this is resolved. For 2 years, we have asked that our contract be followed in terms of compensation. The formula was created so we could quickly resolve compensation conversations and move forward. We are wasting time arguing over a contract that exists. We weren't at the table, any of us in this forum today, that when it was agreed upon between the district and the negotiation team, and we weren't able to ask at that time if it was feasible. Oh boy, I'm going to skip over. So however, I would like to move forward using our language. Secondly, I would like to comment on the reopening of our schools during the summer. I attended meetings discussing reopening protocols. Through this process, I realized I felt my voice wasn't being heard as well as my peers. As a community member, teacher, and parent of a senior in the class of 2020, I know how important it is to have children at school. I hear concerns from many people, outlets, and oftentimes I try not to take it personally. And I felt Mrs. Anthony said it perfectly in discussion of session of reopening schools. Why do parents want to come back, but teachers don't? In my humble opinion, reopening schools should have been discussed ever since we returned in August. Our teachers, like parents, since March have been asked to switch programs over and over again, often hearing the switch the same day as parents. I, for one, am supportive when I have buy-in, but it's hard to have buy-in if I haven't been asked even through a Google form. We are your front line. We are the enforcers of protocol. So as we move forward, I ask that we create consistent and clear protocols and work together successfully. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Rachel Thompson.
Hi, I am an employee at Central Middle School, but I am coming to you as a parent. I have 2 children. One is at Stanford, who's distance learning at Wyandotte, and I have one at Central with me. And my concern is that with state testing coming up and moving back to full time, it will be disruptive to what little learning time we have left in the school year. And I don't argue that we need our children back in school. My youngest has not stepped foot inside of the classroom in a year, and it is very, very detrimental to him. However, they've already had 3 or more schedule changes. He's already had 3 teachers. My oldest has had 4 schedule changes. If we go back to full time, our kids have already had to endure so much change. And while most of our students are resilient, I worry that another change this late in the school year will have more negative effects than positive. As it stands, we do not have enough room to feasibly accommodate adequate spacing in classrooms if we are to return to full time. And I would also like to note that Palermo District is back 5 days a week, but they are only going for half days. So 5 days a week at other districts did not necessarily equal full-time reopening. I am all for our kids being back when the time is right, but I would like to see us wait to open until fall, especially if our numbers stay low and our vaccination rates increase. Thank you.
I think that is everybody that I saw with their hand up.
Okay, I don't have, I will double check my emails, but I don't believe I have any more emails from the public.
No, I don't see any more in backpack either.
Then I'd like to go ahead and close the comments by the public session and move on to discussion session. Letter A, proposed traditional preschool model at Sierra del Oro School.
Thank you, board. I'll be turning the time over to Kimberly Tyler, who is our Director of Special Ed and Principal at Sierra del Oro. The reason for this conversation is last year we housed several different programs at Sierra del Oro. Subsequently, we leased Bird Street to Head Start Preschool, and they to Head Start Preschool, and they moved out of Sierra del Oro, which has now created extra classrooms or vacant classrooms at Sierra del Oro. In the past, the board has expressed an interest in the district to look into state preschools. Now that we have the vacancy at Sierra del Oro, we are looking into the possibility of starting a state preschool at Sierra del Oro. And so Kimberly, if you'd like to take over and kind of discuss with the board what that would look like. Kimberly Tyler, are you there? Looks like she was here earlier. So I will go ahead and start the conversation off. On the board agenda, you'll see that the district has applied for a CES code for Sierra del Oro. We are going through the different steps that we need to do to qualify for a state preschool, which includes getting the right authorization and codes through the state. We've started that process because it can take several months to go through this process, and we are shooting for an opening date for this preschool for September of this current calendar year. We think this will be another great opportunity for us to support our underprivileged families that are in our district. And this is another opportunity that we can give kids within our district and within our community a head start or a foot in the right direction by being able to be in preschool prior to coming to any of our TK or kindergarten programs. Kimberly, I see that you're back on. I kind of talked about the CES code and some of the different reasons why we're doing the preschool program. Would you like to take over and talk a little bit more about what we plan to do at Sierra del Oro with the proposed possibility of starting a preschool there?
Yes, but when I tried to share my screen, that's when all of a sudden I was no longer in the meeting. So I'm going to try this again.
You know what, Kimberly, if you can't share your screen,
I can just talk about it. I made this really cute little thing, but I can just talk about it.
We don't want to lose you again.
Sure. So basically, we have had in the past 4 years a inclusion opportunity at Sierra del Oro, our preschool that serves students with disabilities, while we were housing the Head Start there. This is our 4th year in a state program called Supporting Inclusive Practices, and it is an inclusion program to promote students with disabilities being able to spend time with their typically developing peers. When we had the 2 Head Start programs, classrooms at our site, we were able to include some of our students with push-in from one of our credentialed teachers, and it was very beneficial to our students. Head Start then moved their program to Bird Street. So this year, along with COVID, we have not had the opportunity for our students, even when we came back in hybrid, to have that inclusion opportunity. We did look at the state preschool for a couple different reasons. This is one of the main reasons that we were looking at it was inclusion. And the other thing is we have had some of our students enroll in other preschool programs because we do not offer full day program. We also have our own students in our district who are typically developing students who have went to other districts or even other programs because we did not offer that in our district. And a lot of them are just staying with those districts. So if they start their educational career with us, then there's a good chance they'll continue with us. When I reached out to our region consultant, she was very excited. She wants to work with us. She said it's realistic for us to start in September. She feels we would be an exemplar program because of our history of inclusion and the fact that while most of the teachers and staff of a state preschool are classified people with CTC, California Teaching Commission's credentialing, we would be, well, they're actually called permit holders. We would be able to provide some push-in support from a credentialed teacher because we would have those students with special needs being included into the classrooms. So that would bring a higher quality to our program. Also, we have some of our own aides who are actually in college right now pursuing teaching as an educational career, and they would qualify to be the teachers for this program. So it is very much a win-win. It is a fee-based program. It's a sliding scale. It would be beneficial to our students. It would be on the lines of innovative, the inclusive preschool in Chico. So we would be able to offer a full range of services to our entire student population. And we feel that given everything that we have put into the preschool in the past few years with our added security, our upgraded playgrounds, we actually will be the only preschool with the 75-inch new line TVs. All these items are going to make us something that'll be heads above any of the competing programs. And, you know, no brag, just fact, we have some of the best teachers. So I think that it would be very good. There were two things that are the biggest hurdle for any district in starting a preschool program, and that is facilities, which we already have because we know we've had a licensed Head Start in our facility, and a CDS code, which is on the board agenda for your approval, hopefully tonight.
Kimberly, did you want to, did you mention when we planned on starting this program? I think we were planning on starting it up in September this next year.
We have to go through an application process, which they expect to be opening anytime between now and the next 2 months. Because they are looking very much at inclusion as a priority, our consultant feels that we would be one of the top contenders right away, but that September would be a realistic date for us to look at starting. I do want to point out that we do get quite a few people who come and try to enroll over the OCESD online registrations into preschool. And we've had to send them, you know, other places. And we're now looking at telling people, well, there's a possibility. And so we could already start a waiting list. And if this is something that the board would like to have more information on, I could do a more comprehensive presentation with a PowerPoint that works in the future.
Go ahead.
Kimberly, Andrew, what is the cost benefit analysis on this? I mean, it's obviously going to cost us some money, so what's the benefit of?
The state preschools, once you have them established, typically are sort of they fund themselves, so it's typically a cost neutral thing. It just offers more services to our families. So I see it as, I don't see any really negative impact. Typically the setup costs of a preschool, of converting a building to make it preschool compliant, is the expensive part. Fortunately for us, Sierra del Oro is already ready to go. So we're sitting pretty. I don't see any reason we wouldn't do it.
Sierra del Oro's been a preschool for a long time. My oldest went there when he was a tiny friend. Ms. Sharon, do you have a hand raised?
Yeah, I am in full support of this. I think it's great. I love that the inclusion component of it. I think it's a valuable service to our community. I'm curious though, on the application, that Kimberly, you're listed as the principal. Is that realistic that you can add that on top of your current responsibilities? Is it feasible for you to take that role on? Or do we need to look at hiring somebody else for that position?
So there are 3 levels with the CTC permit process. You can have a program director, which I would qualify for. You would also have a site supervisor, which is at 1 step above a teacher, but can also be combined with a teaching position. So I would recommend that as we move forward with the site supervisor job description, which we're just now starting to look at closely, that we look at having a teacher that has that type of capacity. I am already the principal of Sierra del Oro, the one that we have right now. So this program runs a lot more days than I am currently contracted with the district. This is a full-time program. I believe it's 256 days a year. This program runs while we're on break. This program runs over the summer. So we were going to need some additional staffing.
One thing before you go, Spencer, I'm the one who put together the CDS code application. We had to put something down. Typically how the process works is you work with the California Department of Education to get your special code number for your school. And once that's established and you have the number, all the rest of the information can be changed by notifying them. Spencer has the authority to change the principal, change the name of the school. But we have to get the actual CDS code on the books before we can even open the school. So that's why we just, sort of took what we had and threw it on paper, and we'll get that, through CDE, because it's a long process to get CDE to do whatever they need to do to give us the CDS code.
I also wanted to share that, like Kimberly had shared, that we are currently looking at job descriptions for a teacher supervisor that would be overseeing that program. Kimberly would still have her finger as she oversees all of Sierra del Oro, but we would have a supervisor that would be doing a lot of the day-to-day work and have those responsibilities. And that has all been part of the projected budget for that program, which Andrew shared is, most of those costs, if not all of them, are mitigated through the for-fee process.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing no other questions or comments, I'd like to move on to subject B, update the board on discussion on regarding school programs and learning modules, which is code for
me.
For opportunity of opening.
So Andrew, at this time, could you please bring up the PowerPoint that I shared with you earlier today?
Yeah. Let's see.
And I'd like to, at this time, I will be sharing a presentation for the board regarding the different options that I would like them to review tonight, as this will be an action item later in the board meeting. And it will be my recommendation that after we finish this discussion item, that we then, I'll ask our board president if we could then move to new business item 10A, where you would vote for it, because I know we have a great number of our participants are waiting for a decision for us. So I'm going to do a presentation. We can discuss it in open session with our board and the public, and then we can move to 10A if that pleases the president, so that we can vote on it. So this evening, I'm going to be presenting 4 options for the board. Initially, I had 5 options, but I removed one of them because one of the options, transportation, was not a viable option. So Andrew, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. So I've had several questions from parents over the last couple of days regarding distance learning and independent study, or IFLC. And both programs will be offered for the rest of the year, regardless of the options shared and agreed upon tonight. So the options that we're going to be looking at tonight have to do with kids going back to school. We know some of our distance learning kids will be wanting to come back, and I'll be discussing that as well. But if we have parents and students that want to stay on the distance learning model or in IFLC or independent study, they will have that option at least for the rest of this school year and possibly beyond. And every year we do offer IFLC, and currently, typically we have one program teacher. And this year we have 3 program teachers for IFLC. And if we continue to have that same population for next year, we will continue to run that program very similar to what we have it right now. Currently, important points that I want to share with the board is we are now in red tier. That was as of yesterday, so we're no longer in purple. Transportation will stay the same. They are providing us very limited transportation right now. If we go back to an in-person 4 or 5 day a week program, transportation will stay the same. Now, yes, A and B students, we barely have enough room. If the kids who are currently riding right now are combined into an everyday transportation mode, we barely have enough room for all those kids to be on that bus. But we cannot add at this time any more students in most cases. Now, there are variances, of course, and we always try to work with our families. But right now, if we were to go to a more traditional program, transportation would be very, very close, but we do have the room. After school program will be available all days. Julie Jarrett, who's the director, I've been in contact with her, and she said that they'll be able to work with us and help us meet our needs for a full program. Per the CDPH, which is the California Department of Public Health, it used to be desk spacing used to be 6 feet. Now desk spacing is now 4 feet. We heard a lot of teachers say, hey, I don't know if I have enough room to put 20 or 22 desks in my room. Now, I bought a tape measure. I've gone around to many of our classrooms. Some are bigger than others. In some classrooms, it is very doable, and others, there are difficulty. But I know that we are going to do the very best we can to maintain that 4 to 6 feet. 6 feet if possible, 4 feet if we absolutely need to. Now, we also know, just like our district nurse shared, masks will still be mandated on a 5 or 4 day a week full traditional schedule. Now, we had many teachers that said, hey, we don't want kids being moved and changed and this and that. Well, currently we have approximately 55 elementary classrooms that are in person on the hybrid, and I'm just talking about elementary right now. 41 out of those 55 classrooms, if we were to combine the A and B students, they would be less than 18 kids. We have 4, so about 80% of our kids right off the bat in elementary would not have to experience any kind of change. Now, I did visit several classrooms yesterday, and I will share with the board and the public that I went and visited 5 teachers that have over 20 students in their class. And I walked in on a conversation with the principal and some of those teachers, and those teachers told me, Spencer, I have 22 kids in my class. I do not want to lose any of my kids. They're already trying to figure out how to fit those extra desks in their classes. We are working with them to get the barriers that they need. We know that our teachers do not want the change of students, and we are going to do everything that we possibly can do to keep the continuity for our kids. Now, I can't guarantee that every kid in this district is not going to have some kind of impact or maybe moved. But what I can tell you is we're going to try to mitigate that no kids are going to be moved out of their school and moved into another school. That is going to be the last case scenario. And right now, I'm working very hard with our staff, with our principals, to ensure that we are not going to have to do that. Now, is there the possibility that we are going to have to create some combos at your child's school, and they may be moved into a combo? That answer is yes. That is a very real possibility on those classes that have over 20 students enrolled in their classes. Because in most classes, if 18 to 20 is, without getting really impactful with moving out furniture and things like that, is what a normal class can hold. Now, some are obviously bigger, some are smaller, some have more bookshelves and things like that, some don't. But that's on average. I have worked with the middle school principals, and they have shared with me that they would need at least a couple more teachers to help with the spacing, to accommodate the different changes we may need to make for those larger than 20 classes. We've also looked at the possibility at some of our middle schools of putting bigger classes in the library. At Central, we have some oversized classrooms. We have the Professional Development Center that's a double classroom. And we are looking at all these different ways to mitigate these larger issues that we're dealing with classrooms. I know that we may need up to about 8 extra teachers to help accommodate for spacing. I currently have recruited or talked to at least 11 that are interested. Now, not all of them can commit at this time, but some of them are long-term teachers for us right now that are on different assignments that in April they'll be available to support us. I have some highly qualified subs that have worked for us for years, or retired teachers that have also agreed to come back to work for us. I also have talked to student teachers that are currently working for us and working with Chico State to see if we can mitigate that they might be able to substitute for us for the last 2 months. Typically, they are allowed to sub for us up to 10 days. I'm going to be asking them to waive that and be able to substitute for us for up to the 39 days that we're in school after spring break. They've worked with us in the past. This year, I'm talking about Chico State, and so we anticipate that they'll be able to work with us this year, and they're working with neighboring districts with similar concerns as well. So this is a big concern for me, but we are working tirelessly as an administrative staff to think of every way that we can accommodate the social distancing and make sure that we have all the needed infrastructure to work through the issues that have been brought up by the parents, by the teachers, and by the CDPH. I'm very confident that right off the bat that 80% of those issues are already taken care of because at least in the elementary level, because we're already there with our social distancing. We are not going to bus students to another school. We don't have that capability. That is not in our plan. Now, could there be the unforeseen that parents who want to come off of distance learning may need to go to another school for a 2-week time? That may be a possibility if we don't have enough room for kids coming off of distance learning that want to come back to a full schedule. Now, distance learning students, and this is very important, distance learning students will be asked to call their school of residence to be added to a wait list if they want to return to in-person instruction. We will add those students based on room. Many of those, we believe that many of our distance learning kids will stay where they're going to be. Now, when we did our survey, we got about 25% of our parents who filled out the survey. And we know that of the 20 to 30% of the kids who are on distance learning right now, about 20% of those kids want to stay in distance learning. We heard from some of those parents tonight. I'm going to do all that we can to keep the distance learning teachers where they're at currently. Most of them have over 20 kids in their classes. If they lost, a certain percent of their kids, maybe even up to a third of their kids, I would still have 16, 18, 20, even 22 kids in that class where I need to keep them. And I also want to make sure that I try to keep as much consistency throughout the district for our kids. Because as we've heard, a lot of our kids have had multiple teachers, and I'm going to try to compensate for that as much as possible by not moving our distance learning teachers from distance learning teachers to in-person to offset some of our social distancing. Now, could that be a possibility if I lose a whole class? Sure, I might bring a whole class back, but I don't anticipate that, and I'm not adding those teachers into my calculations as we look to mitigate the spacing. So I want to make it very clear to parents that if you want to stay on distance learning, you're going to be able to stay on distance learning. And if you're a parent that's on distance learning because of the procedures of 5 days a week and the consistency it's given your family, and you want to come back and you go to Stanford, you will call Stanford and say, "Hi, Rainey, I'd like to be added to the district Google Sheet of returning back to Stanford or whatever school that they may attend." Then, based on that information, if we have room to add you, we will. I will also share that a number of the 41 classes out of the 55 elementary classrooms, most of them have anywhere from 2 to 11 spaces open currently. And that would put them around 20 kids. So most of our classrooms have some real room to grow. Now, obviously, we would like to keep those classes that are under 20 or well under 20 as low as possible, but we know that we can bring a number of students off of distance learning if they want to come back into full in-person instruction. Next slide. So option 1 is keep the current hybrid model as is. In our 4 options, I put 3 pros and 3 cons just for the sake of being consistent. We know the pros would be less disruption to student movement. Teachers prefer the model per the survey results, and few or no changes need to be made to classrooms or schedules. So we know we could just keep it and keep on going for the rest of the year because we've mitigated all these issues already. Cons, less in-person time for students. Over a year since parents and students have had a traditional schedule, student achievement is down in all grade levels. And we know this because we've done, we don't have a lot of assessment data out there, but the assessment data that we do have is iReady. And we know across the board, Janet Hanley and myself have have looked at the data, and all of our data across the board is down several percentages over last year's data. Option 2, please. Option 2 is a return to a full traditional schedule. Pros: students will return to a more normal school experience. Students will receive the maximum amount of in-person instructional time. Families will return to a more traditional schedule. Cons: students will have to change or adapt to another new schedule. Classrooms will need to be modified or adapted to the CDPH guidelines. We will need to ensure social distancing, which I've shared is going to be a challenge. I think I've mitigated most of those challenges up to this point, but it's going to be very difficult, and it's going to take a real team effort on the part of administration, on the part of teachers, and on the part of classified staff to make this a reality. We know it's possible because our neighboring districts have been doing it and are doing it currently. Option 3, please. Return to full-time in-person Monday through Thursday instruction with minimum days on Friday. Pros: return to a 5-day-a-week instruction. Friday afternoons offer additional time for a more thorough cleaning of classrooms, additional time for professional development and planning on Fridays. So this plan would give us 5 days a week of kids coming to school, and Friday would be a minimum day. We would also keep the 3 minimum days that we have that are on the schedule still, because we need those for professional development and planning. But this would, option 3 would still give us 5 days a week of kids coming to school. Cons: a minimum day every Friday will provide less instructional times in a week. Transportation could be an issue for some students. I bring this up because the high school district, who we can contract with for our transportation, would not be able to do minimum days on Friday. We aren't transporting many students, and parents could come pick up their kids after the minimum day ends. The kids that would need transportation by bus, we would provide after school care for those kids that would need to wait for the bus for approximately 1 to 2 hours. And for those kids, we would provide a snack and a place for them to wait for transportation. And I'm talking about bus transportation if they were not able to be picked up by their parents on the minimum days on Fridays. And we know that if we had a minimum day on Fridays, that this would impact our parent and family schedules, because they would need to mitigate the need to pick up their kids midday on Fridays. Option 4. Option 4 is return to full-time in-person Monday through Thursday instruction. Fridays will be a distance learning day for all students. Pros are 4 days a week instruction. Friday offers additional time for a more thorough cleaning of classrooms, additional time for professional development and planning on Fridays. A minimum day every Friday. Cons: a minimum day every Friday would provide less instructional minutes per week. Many students and families are struggling with distance learning, and this would impact family and parent schedules. I gave this as an option to our board, as I've researched and talked with many or all of the superintendents in our surrounding areas: Palermo, Durham, Gridley, and spoke with all of them. I've also spoken with people who are in other states, and they have had this 4-in-1 in-person instruction most of the year. But I wanted to give all the options to our board to make a thorough discussion, and so that they have all the options in front of them as we move forward. Next slide. When do we transition to this program? Now, the board can make, as it is an action item, they can make a motion for a different start date, but I'm recommending, or I'm proposing Monday, April the 12th. If we do go with one of the options that are not the hybrid option that we have right now. The reason I chose this day is, one, it allows us ample time to transition and put in all the places, social distancing, desks, change out desks if we need to, get the extra partitions and things like that if we need to mitigate that. Gives us more time if I need to find more substitutes and things like that. That will give us more time to mitigate all that. Gives us 8 weeks of in-person instruction until summer break, and allows time for individuals to receive and complete the vaccination process. We know that we were able to start the process 2 months ago for the vaccination piece, but I also know that we've had numerous employees that have started the process at different phases. And so we currently have some employees that are currently deciding to have the vaccination now, or are in the middle of the process between vaccination 1 and vaccination 2, and that gives them a time to get their vaccination 2 and the 2-week incubation time to make them fully immune. And that allows us for another month for that process to be completed. So I believe that's my last slide. I'll like to open it up to questions for the board to discuss at this time.
First question, what are the quarantine parameters if we should have an outbreak?
So quarantine, we would follow the same kind of quarantine parameters that we've had throughout this process. Our district nurse, Terry Woods, has done an outstanding job with all the tracing. And if we were to have issues with a class or a student, we would follow the same protocols that we've always had, which may require us to quarantine classes, and possibly with their teacher as well, depending on what grade level and depending on what kind of issues we're looking at as far as the quarantine.
State testing, are we really going to do state testing?
State testing is required this year.
Okay. It's required.
And so whether we stay in hybrid or we go to more full-time face-to-face, we are going to be putting together a schedule, and we are going to be required to do it this year.
My last question, special ed, do these options also cover the special ed kiddos?
These also include our special ed kids. Most of our special ed education classes are much smaller than an average class. And so they are included in the numbers, and I can't think of there may be a certain class, but I don't believe there's any class that would not easily fit underneath the social distancing guidelines for special ed.
Sharon.
Yeah, I'm curious, I know you mentioned that you have calculated how many kids can fit into a room with the 4 to 6 feet in between. So, and if you measured it, and the desks can be 4 feet apart. So not everyone has individual desks. I understand a lot of classrooms have side-by-side desks, or a 2-desk table, or full tables. And if you've measured the space to fit so many kids with 4 feet apart, how have you thought about when kids move around? Because they're not going to stay in their seats the whole time. So if they can barely fit 20 kids in a classroom with 4 feet in between where they're sitting, what's going to happen when the kids get up to go sharpen their pencil, or take off their sweater, or go talk to the teacher, or go to the bathroom? How have you planned for that in a small classroom?
So I know that having side-by-side tables where there's 2 students at a table creates a lot of issues for us, because there's not 4 feet between those kids. Now, there's going to be some cases where we're going to need to remove those tables and put in desks in their stead. I know that I've also working with Ishii Hill's principal, and she went in and started measuring, and has shared with me that they would need to bring in, another desk to put at the end of a table so that, one kid sits in the desk and one kid sits at the table, and ensure that there's 4 feet apart. Now, as far as kids getting up and going and moving around, the CDPH guidelines say that desks need to be 4 feet apart. They also realize that kids are they're getting up and they're passing each other. That's why we still need to have all the other mandates in place, the masks, the washing of hands, the temperature taking. And we know that right now that kids that are in school, we work very hard to try to mitigate the spacing, but it's impossible for us to do it, all 4 or 6 or 8 hours of the day that those kids are together. We will do the very best we can. We also know in the CDPH guidelines that they talk about the fact that they have said, if teachers and students try to mitigate, they know that teachers need to go up and help kids. They want they're saying that teachers can do that, but try to limit your space or your time in that student's space. We also know that in the guidelines, it says that keep that space between desks if at all possible. You can also use dividers to help mitigate just what you're saying, that contact. Because desks are 4 feet apart, kids are moving, this way and that way. And if we have dividers, that is going to help mitigate with, the contact and those. Quite frankly, Sharon, that's the biggest thing that I will be tasked with doing, is making sure that we're doing the very best at following those guidelines and ensuring that we're doing the guidelines, because it is a very difficult task. But I do know that it's possible because all the surrounding districts are doing it right now. And I know when I talk to Gridley, who's been doing it all year, they tell me, hey, we all work together to do the very best we can to always keep, the social distancing both inside and outside the classroom.
So just to expand on that, I'm not going to a different question, but so with that social distancing though, in communal areas as well, it's going to be difficult. And the teachers that I have talked to talk about how difficult it is to keep the kids separated, and they're doing the best they can, and they're making it work. But if we're going to double the amount of kids in a classroom and on campus, that's going to double the intensity of trying to keep them safely apart from each other. So what are your plans for those communal areas to not have the double amount of students on campus, like at the cafeteria, the playground, the bathrooms? If they're not coming on different days, you've got both cohorts coming together now. How are these things going to be sanitized, and how are the kids going to space out in those communal areas as well?
So we continue to sanitize on a daily basis. And we have people that are continually after school and even before school wiping, our communal, doorknobs and different things like that. I have been on our campuses every day or almost every day through this process. We are utilizing outdoor spacing and eating as much as humanly possible. And we know that outside and open air mitigates a lot of some of the concerns that you're sharing at the same time. Now, we do know that, like today it's raining and all the kids would need to eat inside. Now, we know that with 30%, or at least right now, 25 to 30% of our kids don't come to school because they're on distance learning. And when I look in the cafeteria, and if we go back, we're going to have probably 80% of our kids on campus on any given day. Now, principals are already looking at their schedule of how they can mitigate and social distance in the cafeterias on rainy days like today. And that's going to be very tricky because lunches are going to have to be spread apart, in longer durations. I talked to a principal today and said, we might have to shorten their eating time and their time in the cafeteria so that we can get more groups of people through the cafeteria. So we're looking at all those things. We don't have, I don't have a schedule for each school for you tonight, but we're working on it. Our principals are aware of it. And nobody has said, hey, Spencer, I can't do it. They're telling me, hey, Spencer, it's going to be hard. Hey, it's not going to be perfect. But we really feel like we can do it because, again, we know that other districts are doing it. I'm talking to Kathy Nolan, who's the superintendent of Palermo, almost every day and asking her, hey, what are you doing? Let me hear what you're doing. How are you mitigating this? Because we know it's not easy and it's going to be another transition, but I'm confident in our staff. We have great administrators, great teachers, and great staff, and we're going to be able to pull through this.
I don't have a question, a hand raise on my option, so here I am.
Go ahead.
Regarding recess at the schools, are the children allowed to go to recess currently?
Yes.
Are they allowed to use the recess or the playground equipment?
That's a great question. I've been at several sites this week. I do not have that answer for you, Jessica.
Okay. I think that they are allowed to use the playground equipment. With the children being screened every single day for a fever and symptoms, hand washing and all of that, and the concern of having them in a classroom separated by a wall or 4 feet, but then allowing them to all be on the playground together, it kind of makes it a moot point whether they should be all together. They already are. So I don't know. I don't see a problem. I don't see a problem with it whatsoever because they already are commingling. They already are mixing together. They already are sharing space, and increasing health and hand washing and all of that should be more of a concern than spread apart, don't touch, spread apart, don't touch. Hand washing, wear your mask, fine, do it. But if they're already on the playground together commingling, then there's no difference in having them 4 feet apart in the classroom. So that's my statement.
Thank you. And I just had a principal text me and said, yes, they are using the equipment. But I will also say that I was at Oakdale Heights this week, and not a lot of kids, and I don't know if they're restricting the kids on their playground equipment, but I didn't see a lot of kids playing on the equipment. I'm not saying that they aren't allowed to. It just, my recollection is that at Oakdale, they weren't as much. But I can absolutely check. I know that your statement wasn't directly tied to that, but we do wipe down equipment. We are cognizant of the fact that, kids, the touch points of a lot of different things.
Right. It's not even necessarily a concern if they're touching it or not. They're touching it. Mm-hmm. So then bringing them back into a classroom and saying, wait, separate, when you were just on a playground not separating, it seems like irrelevant. They're already doing it. They're already in the process of being exposed to each other and being close to each other and next to each other. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, we have a concern of how are we going to keep them separated, but they're not separated.
But that's outside, and that's different. And then it goes against the CDC guidelines if we don't separate them in the classroom, because they do recommend 4 to 6 feet separation to keep our kids safe.
Are we also doing 4 to 6 feet separation on the playground?
I believe that's not a requirement in the guidelines. But
so then the guidelines are extremely flawed then.
Well,
it's outside.
And we do encourage them to social distance as much as possible outside. We do tell them, hey, not to congregate. The guidelines are less restrictive outside because of the open air. Kids are still required to wear masks outside during recess. And we are wiping down the equipment, and we do try to keep the kids somewhat separated. Now, we know kids. It's difficult to manage that, especially when it's, out on the playground and there's a lot more room for people to watch versus in a classroom. But we know that kids are commingling, and we do the best we can to mitigate that.
This is Pamela. Dr. Holdeman, I may have missed it, but as a student, can I choose to stay 2 days in school and 3 days on distance learning? Is that a possibility, even if the district goes to a different model, either full, 5 days or 4 days in school?
So currently, I did not offer an option where families could have distance learning or hybrid or a traditional return. We can keep distance learning with hybrid or distance learning with a full return. We can't do all three of the programs simultaneously. And I don't know if that fully answers your question. I think you might be asking, could a kid come to school 3 days a week and stay on distance learning 2 days a week? And
yes,
that
or if the classroom opens up, let's say the classroom opened up for 5 days a week, and I wanted to stay in that classroom as a student, could I do Monday, Tuesday, and then 3 days distance learning, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday?
Well, for the sake of having consistency across our school sites, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
But I do know that we have a couple teachers, and we have actually several teachers that throughout this process have kind of had a modified in-person and distance learning program that we've approved. And I said it was okay because it allowed for more interaction between the classes and the teachers. And if I have individual students that have worked with their individual teachers for something modified, I would be open to it. But generally speaking, that is not a model that I would commit to or promise any teacher.
So, just so that I'm clear, if the district goes back to either one of the options 2, 3, or 4, as a student, I would have to choose that option, whatever option we voted on, 2, 3, or 4, or a distance learning option.
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And I'm getting a number of texts from my principals. They are rotating the equipment, so kids are rotating through the process of using equipment so that there's time in between that people are using it. And many of our schools have different sections, and so certain days they close off certain sections or only allow certain grade levels to use certain parts of the playground so that there's less contact tracing between the different grade levels.
I see that we have 2 attendees with hands raised. Are we able to take those?
Andrew, do we have 2 attendees with comments from the public?
Yeah, we do. And then I think there's also another one that I emailed you. So I'll go ahead and let Aaron Dye speak. So Aaron, if you're ready, you have 3 minutes once you start.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my phone was delayed. I actually, when I raised my hand, it was before he actually answered my question already, because I was wondering if there was going to be an option for both, since there seemed to be a lot of back and forth. And then also, the second thing that I was going to say about the playground, I kind of also wanted to comment on that, because I have a child that goes to another district, and then I also have a child in this district. And I know that they do play outside and such, and they are expected to still kind of keep their distance, obviously, when they're in the classroom and things. But it has not been as hard as an adjustment as I think a lot of people are anticipating, because my child that is in another district that has been doing it has had really good results with no issues. And I mean, just the initial getting back to school and being with the teacher every day and even the kids, it has been a huge improvement. So, I mean, I don't know how much help that is to other people, but if nothing else, maybe to put some peace of mind that if that is a concern, I know at least with my children who have been going through it, it's been a lot easier once you just kind of get into it. The kids adjust really good. And that's it. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. And then Amber. Amber, if you're there, you had your up. Maybe Spencer, before Amber goes, maybe you could read the email.
Okay. Dear board and all parents listening, my name is Faru Molina from Stanford Avenue School. There's nothing I want more than to go back 5 days a week to best meet the needs of most students, but I have a question that has not been answered. I'm not advocating to open full-time, nor am I asking to remain as we are. I'm asking the board to completely address concerns and questions brought up. I've heard many things that I have no idea about and would love to have some guidance from the district about. I would love to also inform my students' parents about. As a working mom of children in the hybrid model, I understand and share the frustration of trying to be a mom and not have to be my children's teacher, as each has a difficult time getting in touch with their teachers and getting feedback and help from these very busy teachers. But I am also a teacher and feel these teachers' pain as we do not have adequate support and answers from the district. I have heard again tonight that some are wondering if the district has given the staff, teachers, support staff, all we need to get back to full time. We have not. I would like to hear the district address this. Although I have some concerns about health and safety of COVID, I did not raise that as my issue in my comment to the board in a previous meeting about going back full time. My concern was about the needs of all students and why is the district not back in person themselves at this point? And why is the district allowing all who request DL to continue? It is in the best needs of those students. How do you know that? I'm concerned about many students in our district who are DL, as many teachers have shared that so many DL students are not completing work and are falling drastically behind academically as well as socially, emotionally. Also, what did the district decide about these students in special education? Do these students count? I have no idea what to do with my students in special education. I have not heard another about this. Last year, we were advised by the district that those with special ed services would cease as we were in a pandemic. So what is going to happen now? This was not addressed. If some are advocating for back to school for the best of all students, are we really allowing some to stay in DL? I completely understand some staff and parents who need DL due to health needs and some due to learning behavioral needs, but that is not true for all who are DL. I have another concern about if the district chooses to go back to full time, and that concerns the district. Teachers have not been advised on what we need to do and how. Teachers also have not been given supports in terms of personnel support to help teachers prep for moving to a full class of students, nor have we been given time to do this. We were given an opportunity to write a grant to do some more work to help our children and students. We just don't have time to do all this ourselves. That is why we have a district. I have many more questions, but I heard them asked by parents and staff. Can you please address these where we can read them, not just hear them spoken, answered once? I can't wait to see all my students soon. So please, board, can you address these things and work with us to mitigate these issues so we can go back in person safely soon? Thank you, Faru Molina, third grade teacher, Stanford Avenue.
All right, now we'll see if Amber is available. Amber, if you want to unmute, go ahead.
Sorry about that, you guys. I didn't mean to raise my hand.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Amber. And because this is a discussion item, I can do my best to address at least some of the issues that Ms. Molina brought up. It's going to be a parent choice to whether or not they recommend their own child to return from DL or not. We know that every student's a little bit different, and we know as parents what is best for our own child. Now, we know that a number of students that are on DL are on there for a number of different reasons, from anywhere from parent schedule to continuity to, I have also had parent emails that have stated that distance learning has been the best thing for their family because they have more time together and their student has less drama and their student works very well individually. Now, I think that is the type of family is in the minority, but I know it does happen and I know they're out there. And so we want to give parents as many choices as possible. Now, traditionally, we have one or two choices. We have independent study and we have traditional. Right now, we have independent study, distance learning, and traditional. Or we don't have traditional, we have hybrid. And we try to give parents as many choices as they possibly can have to work what's best for what they're dealing with. Now, we've heard from a lot of parents that, have shared their opinions. And we will continue to leave it up to the parents for them to make the best decision for their children. As far as special education goes, we are encouraging our special education kids to come back. But we know that students with disabilities have all kinds of different issues, and we're letting parents make that decision. We heard from one parent this evening that talked about her autistic student, and change is very difficult with students with autism. And so changing to and from different schedules would be very difficult on that student. But who should make that decision? The parent should be making that decision. And they certainly could and should consult with their teachers as we look to mitigate. But ultimately, parents have that right to make that decision based on what's going on with the pandemic at this time. And we also know that we have a lot of parents that are very concerned because we have a number of students that are being raised by grandparents or have grandparents living in the home. And not everybody's had the opportunity to be vaccinated or want to be vaccinated. And they're very, very concerned about the virus being brought back from school. Hence, they're given the opportunity to stay in a DL program. So I hope I answered at least some of those questions. Yes, there's a lot of other things that need to be mitigated, but that's going to be my job. If we do decide to go back and change our model, my next month is going to be one of probably the busiest months of my career. But that's my job, and I think I'm up to the challenge.
Oh, I think last year was far busier.
Well, every year is busy here in Butte County. So here's my newest challenge that I think our staff is up to it.
So we have one option to status quo, and we have three options that have a full-time traditional element. What is the difference between going 4 days a week versus 5 days a week in the grand scheme of things?
The grand scheme of things is that's going to be approximately 8 days less of instruction, because we have we have 8 after April 12th, we have 8 weeks of school. So if we go to school 4 days a week for those 8 weeks, that's approximately 32 days. If we go to go to school 5 days a week, that's going to be 40 days. And it's actually 39 because one of the Mondays in there is going to be Memorial Day.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what is going to be the difference in the number of bodies in a room?
That is not going to change. If you choose option 2, 3, or 4,
right,
I'm going to have the same requirements for social distancing, some of the same concerns that we have about ensuring social distancing and all the other schedules. The only thing that is going to change is the amount of instructional minutes, and I gave the board options to reflect what some of our neighboring districts are doing, and also to reflect the fact that You know, it would be advantageous to have some additional time built in for professional development and teacher prep, but that would be something that I think can be mitigated with the 4.5 days, 4.5 day schedule. But ultimately my goal is kids and educating kids.
Okay.
And
So then having that Friday light day, that less strenuous day would actually help. Now, that leads me to my next thought process. Are there distance learning kids that will be able to stay with their teachers in the classroom, that will be able to Zoom through while they're teaching in the classroom?
I would say no. Now,
Okay.
Generally speaking, that answer is no. We have a handful of teachers that currently do what I call synchronous and asynchronous teaching at the same time. That is in elementary schools, and we only have a handful of teachers that do that. Would they still be able to do that? Yes, they would still have that opportunity, but that's not the general norm. And so generally speaking, you know, if we go to a more traditional schedule, that is probably, unless the teachers want to do that for one reason or another, that would still be, that opportunity would not be taken away from them.
Right.
But
Right.
I'm not advocating for that because it's very difficult to do.
Right, and having that extra Friday moment of reprieve will help that, if they should choose to do that, though.
Yes, that would, anytime that we can give back to teachers for prep, I think it's advantageous for teachers.
Okay. Bill.
I'm ready to move to make a motion. The item.
I would like to know which one you would like to choose. If you have.
If you call the item, I'll make the motion.
Okay. Yes, Sharon. I see you have things to say.
Yeah, I do still have a lot to say. I haven't heard from the other board members yet what their perspective is, so I don't know what motion you're ready to put forward. I know.
Heard from them either, so I'm not ready to make one either. So
okay.
Yeah.
So this is Pamela, and options 2, 3, or 4. So moving away from the hybrid model to either full traditional opening or the Monday through Thursday options. And I'm sort of open if anyone has a huge preference on whether it's the 5 days, 4 days, or 4.5.
My humble opinion is that 3 is kind of out just because of the transportation issue.
Good point. Thank you very much. Well, it's actually, no, I thought that the transportation issue was fine. It was that the students would just be at sort of the after school program. So I should have turned on my video while I was talking.
Thank you, Pamela. I do, Madam President, I do have a solution to that, and I've worked with CSEA prior to that. It's just not going to be optimal, but again, we're only talking about a handful. You know, we're not talking about a lot of kids at each site, and parents still could pick them up
later in the day.
You know, at the minimum day time. And when I say, and let me qualify something. When I say minimum day on Friday, some of our minimum days end at 1:30, and I would make the recommendation to the board that we go our regular start time, which is around 8:30, and go to somewhere around 12:30, so that we could give the ample time for the possibility of professional development and or additional prep time for teachers as we transition into this possible new model. And I'm advocating for additional prep time because they are going to be getting kids, and some of them new kids. And we're going to be doing assessments, and we're going to have kids that, normally you come in and the kids there's a gap between kids, some are high and some are low. We may experience kids that have, the gap might be like this, and which may require, additional time to plan and prepare. So if I were to advocate for an option, it would be the 4.5, because I do believe that our kids need to be in school every day.
I do too, but dang it, coordinating with the high school, don't know what they're gonna do.
So Madam President, in that case, I'd like to say that I would be then leaning much more towards options 3 or option 4.
I personally believe that option 3 would be the best option. The teachers would have the additional time for the preparation and to regroup and gather and change the plan if necessary on Fridays, but also will provide additional training time, and will also provide deep cleaning time.
Thank you, Bill. Jessica, do you have anything to say on the matter?
Regarding the proposals, I think that a 4-day week full-time in-person instruction is the way to go, with Friday being utilized with the students as a primary of primary importance, and then teachers will have the remainder of the school day as discussed before. Option 3.
Okay, thank you. Sharon, we have had our questions answered, more or less. For the
Well,
moment.
I think options 2, 3, and 4 all mean increasing the amount of time that our kids are spending at school and increasing the number of students, doubling the number of students on campus at the same time. And we are still required to follow CDC guidelines for school.
Right.
And they say that spreading COVID increases, that risk of spreading COVID increases if we move from the hybrid learning model, which is the least risky, to having students on campus at the same time, all students every day. That we are increasing the number of students who are at risk. We're increasing the risk for our staff. We're increasing the risk for our community. And that it is in the CDC guidelines for schools right now. With our current hybrid model, our schools have created a safe space because we have a smaller number of students that can come together and they can learn and they can play. Yes, it's not ideal, but they have that opportunity. They can interact while still socially distancing and have enough time in between the cohorts to sanitize, to keep everybody safe. We're making it work. So if we bring them together and we have twice as many students on campus at the same time, we've got to figure out how are we going to clean the restrooms between use. And we've got kids lining up to get their temperature in the morning, twice as many kids. We're going to have to try to figure out how to keep them in line, to make sure they're socially distancing. And we're going to have to patrol their student movement. With so many students on campus, it's going to be a very restrictive, stifling atmosphere, which is contrary to the welcoming environment that we all want our students to be a part of. And if one person tests positive for COVID, then there's going to be a larger number of students that have to quarantine because they've been exposed in a larger group than what we have right now. Most of our classrooms will have twice as many students in it. They're going to, even with the measuring the 4 feet between desks, it's going to be really tight. The students really will have no wiggle room. And it's going to be very restrictive in their classroom, and it's going to cause students to have difficulty in learning in that environment. And then those classrooms that don't even have enough space to bring all their students in, we have to look at hiring substitute teachers. So some students would have to be moved to new classrooms with different classmates and a brand new teacher for the last 8 weeks of school. I think that would cause a larger learning disruption and a breach in the structure that we've finally gotten used to. And if we add that to the challenges they've already experienced this year or the past 3 years, I can only imagine how much more traumatic that would be for our kids. 8 weeks. That's all we have left after spring break. And I understand that parents and kids are ready to come back to school full time. I get that, but our classrooms aren't ready. Our space isn't ready. Making the adjustments to safely come back takes more time. And the most logical point to make a change in our learning modality is at the beginning of the year. And I think that we will set ourselves up for success to create a more positive learning environment in a safe environment if we take the time to wait and do it at the beginning of the year. So my plea is to go for option 1 and maintain hybrid for the safety and security for our students and for our staff, so we can provide the stability that they need to thrive and succeed right now.
Did Spencer say that the class sizes would only be approximately 18 students each?
Well, it depends on what school site you're at. It depends on what class. We have, like I shared earlier, 41 out of 55 classes in the elementary are less than 18 or 19.
So that's only 4 to 5 more students than they currently have in the hybrid model.
It would be, most of our hybrid models, classes are in between, anywhere from 5, 6 to, 15 kids, depending on what grade level, and where we're at. Those classes that are over and I'm just saying approximately 20, because that's just kind of generally speaking the average size of our classes. Now, of those 14 classes that I would need to kind of mitigate and work through, I talked to 5 of those teachers, because I'm saying, hey, how could we do this? I'm trying to get more information from our teachers. And they all told me, Spencer, we can figure this out. I want to keep my kids. We're going to be able to, yes, we're going to have to get creative. I had a teacher that said, I will take everything out of my classroom just to ensure that I can keep all of my kids. And now that number is up to 46. And I haven't even talked to the other, 9 teachers that are going to be over. Now, middle school is going to be a little bit different because, they rotate, different teachers all throughout the day. And so I don't have, all those numbers, other than the principals have said, hey, I need a couple extra teachers and to mitigate this and work through this process. But I also have an idea that I haven't fully vested, but what I'm working through right now. And that's why, I need a month for a number of different reasons why I'm proposing April 12th. But I'm also looking at hiring additional subs, that if you have a classroom, and let's say I have a classroom of 4th graders that have 24 and 2 5th grade classes that have 25, if I pull 6 kids out of that 4th grade class and 5 kids out of each of those 5th grade classes, that's 16 kids. And what I would do is, if I have room in another class, is that I would pull those kids out and different kids each hour to work with a substitute to maybe do art or PE or iReady or do something. So we always are keeping to the CDC guidelines. Now that sounds, wow, that sounds convoluted and sounds difficult. Well, again, this is going to be a tough process. We have to be creative. We do want to adhere to the guidelines, and I want to keep 20 kids in the class. But if I did it that way those kids, 80% of their day is with the same teachers all the time. And then they're with, a teacher that they're going to get to know 1 hour a day to do iReady in a makeshift pod computer lab, or outside doing PE, or in a pod doing, or in another classroom doing art during that hour. We have to be creative. We know that this is a big problem, but it's a bigger problem not to have our kids in school. And And I hear what Sharon's saying, and I will continue to work with you, Sharon, to mitigate all your concerns. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to mitigate everyone's concerns, because this is such a difficult situation that nobody has ever been through. But what I want to reiterate to our public and to our board is that we have great people here in Oroville. We have great staff, we have a great board, and whatever challenge we have in front of us, we're going to overcome. And we've done it time and time again in Butte County, and we're going to do it again. But it's going to take some stretching, and it's going to take some compromise. But I just want to share with this board that we are up to this task, not only for tomorrow and April and May, but if this thing continues on, we are going to continue to pull through and do whatever we can to do what's best for our kids.
Okay, Andrew, we've got an attendee with a hand raised, and then I'd like to get back to Bill.
Okay, Miss Stallions.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi there. I wanted to clarify that if we go off of hybrid, that students would, I'm not saying my opinion about it, but students will not be able to stay with that teacher to be able to communicate with that teacher because they will have to go with a distance learning teacher. So we are talking about that earlier, and they will not be able to stay in with that teacher because there was a question about if they were going to be able to go to school 2 days a week and then be able to do distance learning 3 days a week. I just wanted to clarify that. I don't know if I made sense on that, but they'll have to go into distance learning with a completely different teacher. They will not be.
Teacher decides to move back into the classroom, that student in distance learning will have to transfer to a different teacher.
Possibly, but I think she's talking about Pamela's question about the 2 and the 3.
Yes.
And I don't think that's going to be a viable option to have a mix of hybrid and or full day, plus the hybrid. And like I shared earlier, I don't think that's going to be a viable option and not one of the options that are put forward to the board tonight. Thank you, Lindsay, for clarifying that.
And one more question from the attendee.
Let's see. We have Nina Bates up next.
I just have a quick question so I can get it clear. So if we go back to the full days now, is there a chance that like my granddaughter's going to lose the teacher that she has, or are they going to be in the same classroom?
We are going to do all that we can to keep our kids with their same teacher. If you're in distance learning and you stay in distance learning, I'm going to do all I can to keep those distance learning teachers in place with the same students. I can't guarantee anything at this time because 1, I don't know which option we're going to follow, and 2, I don't know where your student is at. If they are in hybrid right now with a certain teacher and we go to one of the options 2, 3, or 4, we're going to do all that we can to keep your child with their current teacher. Right now, if we were to start in the elementary tomorrow, and even in our middle school, if we were to start this program tomorrow, which we're not, we're looking at April, at least 80% or 85% of our teachers right off the bat would keep their same kids. Now, there is a chance that there are going to be some kids that might have to be moved into a different class. I'm going to do my very best to eliminate that opportunity. I want to keep kids with their current teachers as much as humanly possible. But at this point, and I can't guarantee that for all students and maintain the CDPH guidelines. But I have plans to do all I can to keep our kids on their normal, with their normal, and when I say normal, their current teacher as much as possible.
Okay. Okay, that's the only thing I'm really scared of because she is a kindergartner and I really didn't want to uproot her. And so that's why I was asking.
Thank you. And I will do all I can, Nina, to ensure that we have the least amount of movement as possible.
Okay. She goes to Stanford, so. And I appreciate it. And I know you guys are doing a lot of hard work. I'm just looking out, to make sure she doesn't get moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is 8:30. I know that there's one more attendee with their hand raised, but I'd like to go ahead and move on to option 10 in the new business. Bill?
I think we should hear what the person with their hand has.
All
said.
right.
Okay. Mike Britton, you want to go ahead? Go ahead, Mike. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. You're muted again.
His microphone may not work, or it may not be activated. So we can also write an email to backpack@ocesd.net.
We can see, Mike, that you're trying.
Oh. Do we have any emails?
I'm going to see if
There are no more emails in Backpack.
okay. I'm checking my.
Do we have we don't have a chat option either.
No, not unless you want to have a public record of a chat, which we don't. So Mike put his hand down, so maybe we just move on, or.
Okay. I do see a Q&A anyway. The number just went up.
Yeah, but we're not responding to Q&A. That's just supposed to be for, we have our methods that we're supposed to use.
Yep.
For
According
public comment.
which is the law of the land.
Yeah.
All right, then I'm going to go ahead and move on to new business. Bill, I'd like a motion to approve option 3.
I just want to make a comment prior to doing that I believe that what is necessary for us to do at this time is to move forward and get our children back into the classroom. I'm basing that on, I don't believe the science supports keeping them out of the classroom at this time. I think that the damage that is actually occurring is the fact that they're not there. I've seen in my own grandchildren the regression of them socially and emotionally, the troubles that they're having by not being there. My friends that are also grandparents have seen that same issues with their grandchildren, and my friends that are young enough to have children have had that same issue. It's important to get our kids back to school. I, therefore, based upon that reasoning and the belief that I believe in our district, our teachers, and their ability to keep them as safe as possible in this situation and move forward, I think that we should be doing something different. And as far as if our schools aren't ready, well, then shame on us, because we've had a year to get it that way. We knew this was coming. This day has been coming from the very beginning. At some point, we knew this would end. So I think we have a month to get ourselves into that position. So I'd like to make the motion to approve option number 3. We return to school after Easter vacation, and that my motion continue, and that only continues through this school year, and that we return to regular school 5 days a week next August.
I appreciate that, Bill. Do I have a second?
A second.
Pamela, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Karen, how do you vote?
No.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye. The motion carries for option 3, Monday through Thursday, full-time with Friday minimum day, starting April the 12th, 2021. Thank you very much for that. And we will go back to, where am I? Number 7 in the action session. Would like to open the opportunity for interested parties to speak on items that are listed on the agenda. Comments may be emailed to backpack@ocesd.net. Please include your first and last name in the email. Comments received that pertain to items listed on the agenda will be read into the record at this time. However, comments without the sender's name cannot be read. Do we have anything concerning the other pieces of business in the agenda? Okay, hearing no comments on the other pieces of the agenda, I go ahead and close public comments on the action items and move on to the consent agenda. Do we have any comments or questions about the consent agenda? Hearing no comments or questions, I'd like a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam President, can we hold off for just a second? Let me just quick look at my notes. I thought I had a question. Dr. Holtum, is the Office of Indian Education Consortium Agreement, that's not in the consent agenda, is it?
It is, and I can speak to that.
If you could, I would like to have just a little bit more on that. Yeah, that was the only thing. So, thank you.
Janet, did you want to speak to that, or would you like me to speak to that, Janet?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The Office of Indian Education Consortium Agreement. I can take that.
Good, okay.
I can take that, Janet. So each year we work with some of our surrounding school districts, Thermalito, Oroville Union, and because we have a Native American population in our district, we are able to qualify for a grant that offers at least 2 hours a day of Native American support that's provided through instructional aides. That money comes to our district, and we split that money, and we use that money to pay at least part of the salary for those aides. And they specifically are designed to support those kids within our school district. And they're specifically designed to work with those with that population. And it's a consent agenda because we do this. We've been doing this for several years. And this is not just unique to our district, but to many other districts that have Native American populations.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions on the consent agenda? Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Pam. Second the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Jessica, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Pam, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. The consent agenda items approved. Subject 9 in facilities, accept the request for proposals of infrastructure modernization utility savings program.
So we put out a request for proposals for a infrastructure modernization and utility savings program. We had 3 really high quality responses. After doing the review, and we'll get to that the results in a second, but I think at this point it's where you accept the bids as they're written, and you have one from ABM, one from Climate Tech, and one from NG.
I noticed that one of them scored lower and the other 2 scored the same. So how
Right.
are we going to tie break that?
So, the proposals were all very similar. There were some. We had a tie when it came to NG and Climatech. So NG and Climatech are both here to present tonight. So that would be on the next agenda item would be where you select which vendor it is. This is just accepting the bids. So my hope is that after seeing the proposals tonight from the two different vendors, that the board will be able to make a selection of which one they'd prefer. Like I said, we had our committee go through the process as is outlined in the RFP, and we came to a statistical tie between the two proposals.
So Andrew, I have no problems going ahead and accepting those bids, but we don't have any prices. We don't have any brass tacks.
So what I'll recommend that we accept the bids and make a motion to do that. And then in the next item, which is 9B, we will discuss that.
Okay. Motion to approve. 9A. Proposals for the bids for infrastructure modernization utility.
I make a motion, we approve the bids as agendized.
Second.
I second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Pam, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye. The motion carries. The bids are accepted for utility infrastructure modernization. Letter B, awarding the contract. So again, I don't know that I feel necessarily comfortable awarding the contract to two different.
Okay, so let me kind of back up a little bit. On this particular proposal, what we're asking is to engage with the firm who is then going to put together some detailed contracts and detailed plans that we'll get to pick from as far as plans to put in solar using different types of financing, plans to put in new HVAC machines and other things. And they're going to go and try to find different financing sources, whether it be loans, whether it be grants, whatever it is that they're going to propose. So we're looking to bring in a firm that's going to do this. Both of these firms would get they have a profit margin on one of the items on the request for proposals, a profit margin. They have the same profit margin. I think it's 5%.
Correct.
So that's the same between the two. So it's who do we want to work with for doing these programs? It's not a here's the proposal for the finished program. This is sort of step one. We have to get somebody who has the expertise to go in and kind of design it, put it together for us, and then we can have some choices. Because it will be a big program, a big project. So we just wanted to start this way to see if we could, first start with somebody picking a vendor that's going to help us.
Okay, so then what we're doing is we're awarding a contract for someone to do an analysis.
Well, they're going to do the analysis, and then we're going to pick, if we elect to pick one of the different options, then they'll go forward with that and put that together for us. And so they'll take care of a lot of the, hiring of contractors and things, and a lot of the legwork that goes along with these projects. So they would kind of be like our general contractor, sort of, over the top of the whole project.
I do want to share with the board is all three companies that we looked at are very, very large and very reputable and very experienced in this work. One of the big indicators of why we narrowed it down to two and not three was that the one that is not here tonight had a 7 or 8% profit margin request in their bid, and both the ones that are here tonight have 5%. And we know that finances are very important. And so, and both are very reputable, both are very experienced, and both bring a lot to the table. And because of that, we thought it would be behoove us to bring it to the board to let them make the final decision. And we've invited both groups to come and present tonight so that we can move forward with the process.
Okay, are they here?
Andrew, are they here with us?
Yeah. So I'm gonna bring Climate Tech on first. I'm presenting them in alphabetical order. Oh, go ahead.
Can I say, how long is each one going to present? I'm not really, quite honestly, and I'm sorry, but I'm not up for a half-hour presentation from each company.
Okay, we had originally asked them to do 15 minutes, but I could ask them to abbreviate that further if you'd like.
And I'm just trying to figure out why aren't they competing? Why don't they bring the best deal that they can bring, and then we will select from that, as opposed to us just selecting one and not providing, I'm not really sure why we're doing what we're doing. I mean, I'm not really following that part of it. I've always thought that open competition between companies was best, not narrow down to one and let them know, hey, they got us. I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm a little confused on what we're doing here.
Okay, I think that when it comes to this type of proposal, there's a lot involved as far as, putting together a full-on proposal. And if this is something where we don't want to award the contract tonight, we can go back out and do it a different way.
Andrew, what I'm having trouble with is we keep talking about a contract, but I don't see no numbers. So what are we contracting to? We're just going to be obligated to deal with them?
Right, we're selecting a vendor for this project to start with.
But I don't know how do you select a vendor when you don't know what they're going to tell us all sorts of things. And this is kind of, I've had really bad luck with design build type stuff. And this is a design build type project is what it sounds like. I would really rather they nail it down as to what they're bringing, not the pie in the sky they're going to sell me about what they're going to do. I want to know what they're actually required contractually to perform. And so I don't know, like I say, I'm still stuck with why we're awarding a contract for we don't know what we're awarding a contract for, other than for them to go get us maybe something.
So I'd like to go ahead and table this until next week. I apologize for the inconvenience, but considering the late hour, we still have quite a bit of work to do.
Well, and if we can, and like I say, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just haven't, I'm not following this for some reason. Maybe I'm thick on this particular situation, but I would like to see us, if we could, have a special meeting just for this, because I believe this is something that is going to require probably half-hour presentations to fully explain. At least I think I'm going to need that. I don't know about everybody else, but I would really like to thoroughly understand this. I've been involved in a project with this before, and it didn't turn out well. So I just don't want to jump into anything else. And quite honestly, I'm really glad that we're not using one of the companies that are on here, because it didn't turn out well. And I don't want to jump into another one.
Okay, well, we can table for next time and have the vendors come back at a different meeting.
Well, I did hear Bill say that we can call a special board meeting just for this purpose. We have put a lot of time and effort into this, and we want, and this is going to be a very important thing for our district. And I realize we've been here for many hours, and it might behoove us as part of our decision making to start fresh and give both companies ample time to present where they're the only thing on the agenda. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Bill, and we will, Madam President, we can table this and call a special board meeting.
Thank you. I do believe that they deserve our fullest attention. Now I'd like to move on to new business subject B, adopting the 21-22 calendar, which is another very important item. I think the biggest question on the table with that was, how much is it going to cost to afford the transportation if we deviate from the high school's transportation schedule?
If we deviate away from the high school transportation schedule, I met with them, it's going to be at least an additional $10,000 to our contract and possibly more. They also shared with us that we would be asking their bus drivers to work outside their contract, so they would have to negotiate that. And that could mean that we would even be paying more than that, because that would be additional time. So the high school did share that they, hypothetically could do it for, and when I say hypothetically, they said, yes, we can do it, but it's going to come with a price tag.
Alrighty. So, trying to read. Option A follows with no February break. Options B and C follow with a February break, but different starting and end dates.
So option A, if I'm reading this correctly, is would follow the high school calendar, and B and C would give us a February break, and one of those options we start a little bit earlier in the school year in August to make up for those 3 days that we take off in February, and the other one has us going 3 extra days in June to make up for those days that we're on vacation in February.
Do we have any comments or concerns other than the $10,000 price tag?
And I want to say at least $10,000 is what they shared with me.
I had one more.
Keeps it on with the high school.
I'm sorry, Bill, what was that?
Which schedule keeps us on the regular track with the high school?
A.
A.
All right, thank you.
And I had one kind of comment on that. When we met with the high school, we talked about why they got rid of the February break. And it sounds like that the decision they made to do that isn't a temporary 1-year decision to get rid of February break. It sounds like they're not returning to February break in their plans.
Oh.
So that might make a difference. If it was a 1-year thing, then maybe it'd be different. But I wanted to kind of get that information out there as well. So everybody has that.
I just have a comment as well. I want to acknowledge, I heard from quite a number of teachers who were very supportive of having the February break. And I just want to acknowledge, want to thank that staff for their emails and for their input.
Great, thank you.
Andrew, did you say, you said that the high school is not going to bring the break back, but
Yeah, that's correct.
any other comments as to why they are deciding to eliminate that?
It coincides with, I think, Chico's schedule better. I think that's what it was. Spencer, you were there too.
Yes. They wanted to coincide with Chico's schedule because they have a lot of shared programs where they are transporting back and forth, and shared programs in special ed and some other programs. Our other elementary districts that flank us, I believe, also adopted, if I'm not mistaken, the high school schedule. And Andrew is correct. They told us that this was a move that that they don't anticipate going back to a February break moving forward. They didn't give us a whole lot of reasons beyond that. But I also think that some of it had to do with they wanted to get out of school earlier as it relates to graduation and some other things, but I can't remember all the details.
So I'm taking a closer look at the February schedule, and it looks like that there is a 4-day weekend on that week that they're proposing remaining in session. So it's not for nothing. It's not without a slight silver lining. So considering the financial constraints, I'm going to have a motion to approve calendar A.
Madam President, this is Pamela Hamilton. I make a motion to approve calendar option A, which keeps us with the high school, Orville Union High School District school calendar for 2021-2022.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
No.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Pamela, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion carries. We remain with the schools, high school's transportation schedule. On to letter C, MOU with the Orville Police Department.
So currently, we have a contract for $50,000 that we pay to the Oroville Police Department for SRO services. This is the same contract that we've brought to the board in years past. We are lucky enough that that $50,000 has stayed the same. And I asked the board and recommended the board that we continue to honor and continue this contract as it provides 2 SROs, one for each of our middle schools, and they also support our elementary schools. And we continue to work well with Oroville PD, and we thank them for their support. Andrew, do you have anything else to add to that?
Madam President, if I could, this is Bill LeGrone. I'd like to recuse myself from this item.
Thank you, Bill.
To add to this, this has been part of our LCAP plan. And so we use supplemental and concentration funding to pay for this contract. It's still part of our LCAP plan. So I don't see why we wouldn't move forward with it.
Thank you, Andrew. Motion to approve.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve the item is on the agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Pamela, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The motion carries. On to the approval of establishment of a traditional preschool at SDO school.
We've spent, I think we spent a great deal of time discussing this, and recommend to the board that you give us the approval to continue our progression to establish a preschool at SDO.
Right, and this approval will give us the authorization to get the CDS code. There'll still be lots more steps before we actually open a preschool, but this is the step that we have to do well ahead to get our number from CDE.
Motion to approve to get a fancy number for the establishment of a traditional preschool at SDO.
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve the agenda item as agenda, approve the establishment of a traditional preschool at Sierra del Oro.
Thank you, Pam. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sharon. Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote aye. The motion carries.
Madam President, I vote aye as well.
Oh, thank you, Pam. Sorry.
It's no problem.
I'm starting to get rummy. Business and Finance, approve the 2021 second interim.
No, we have.
We have a comment?
Nope.
No?
We have.
Did I miss something?
10E and F. We still need to go.
Oh, I did miss something. Where? I got D, and then it goes to 11. I have no E, I have no F.
Hold on. Does everybody have an E and F on their board agenda?
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
I do.
posted on the website.
Yes.
Here we go. Here we go.
All right.
Excuse me, the copies that I had somehow don't have those on it. So, go.
No, that's,
Right.
Yeah,
right
but
there.
this bit isn't the same.
Mhm.
Okay, oh, I see it now. Approve the reading of the revised board policy 3320, claims actions against the district.
Janet? Janet, are you there? Okay. Let me.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So this is just one of the board revisions of policy that we'll be going through. Kim takes the policy and she matches it against Gamut to make sure that we have current and updated board policy according to the latest regulations. We've been running our policies through the DOJ to get approval for them as well. And so this one is ready to move forward.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the board policy, the first reading of the board policy 3320, claims and actions against the district?
I move that we approve the first reading of the revised board policy 3320, claims and actions against the district.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Cam, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Karen, how do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye, the motion carries. Next is the acceptance of the first reading of Administrative Regulation 3320, claims and actions against the district. Now, the difference between this one and the other one is because it was just against the district on the last one. This one is against the administration specifically.
Well, this is the administrative regulation. The other one was the board policy.
Oh, right, okay. I'm so glad you're awake.
So the first one gives you the what, it tells you what the policy is all about. And then the AR gives the specific directions on how to carry it out.
I read it twice. Can I have a motion to approve?
Madam President, I make a motion that we approve.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second.
Karen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Pam, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye, the motion carries. On to the approval of the second interim budget adjustments. Andrew, is there anything on there that we need to focus on specifically? I looked at it, but I didn't.
Yeah. I'm going to have a quick presentation to go over the main points real quick. I'll try to keep it brief, as brief as I can. Can you guys all see my presentation?
Yes.
First
Yes.
slide? Okay, great.
Yes.
So this is the second interim budget. The second interim budget is the third version of the budget for the year. It's the update to the first interim budget that we adopted in December. And we have to update it by statute in mid-March. The main thing that's different about the second interim budget from the first interim budget is that the January governor's budget was created and put out there for new assumptions in January. So that's sort of the big difference between first interim and second interim. There are also other updates and things that as you have better information, you correct or update. So I'm going to be going over all these different changes one by one. So I'm not going to read them here about what's new on this budget. The first thing that's new is the governor's January budget. Governor Newsom presented his January budget, which was a good budget for education. It restored COLA funding. If you recall, with the prior budget, there were no COLA assumptions, no COLA increase assumptions for any of the out years. This returns the cost of living adjustment increases to our local control funding formula. And for 21-22, the current budget was 0%, but next in 21-22, it's going to be 3.84%, which is actually a combination of this year's COLA that they didn't pay us of 2.31% and next year's COLA, which is 1.5%. So They haven't called it a super COLA or given it some kind of clever name yet, but they will, especially if it continues to exist. What's going to happen is the governor's budget will be revised again in May, and then it'll be some version of the budget will be adopted by the legislature in June. Last year, the governor's January budget was pre-COVID, and it was very good. And then we had the May revision, which was terrible, absolutely a horror show. And then we had the adopted budget, which was an improvement, but still very bad, with lots of reductions. So I don't want to tell you to take this budget with a grain of salt, but it is something that we want to make sure that we're aware that it could change dramatically over time and depending on what happens with our financial circumstances. And we haven't really seen the impact on our tax revenues from the COVID crisis. So we're going to see that here pretty soon. So I think that May revise will be very telling, and hopefully things will start to stabilize. Other things included in the budget was a pay down of some of the cash deferrals. That's where they're borrowing cash from the school districts to pay for their own cash problems. And there were also some new categorical programs, and one of them is that return to school AB 86 that they just passed was something that was discussed in the budget as well, and part of the plan for next year. So most of this new one-time money that we're looking at is going to come to us next year. We already know about the one-time money we're receiving for COVID response and learning loss mitigation this year. But next year, we're looking at $3.7 million from the federal government. And this was the stimulus plan that was passed in December, I think. And that's called ESSER 2. And this is funds we'll spend next year and the following year. And then also the AB 86, which they just passed, would have $1.7 million for Orville Elementary for the school reopening and expanded learning. As far as the impacts of what the new stimulus money that the House and the federal government just passed, we still don't know what that will be, what kind of relief that will provide to schools as well. But again, this is all one-time money, and it is designed to be spent on things related to COVID-19 to safely operate schools and to help mitigate the learning that was lost during the COVID-19 closures. Deferrals in our budget package, starting on page 66, I ended up doing 2 years of cash flows. This is because this is one of the things that will be required by the county treasurer's office. The county treasurer is going to loan us the cash to get through our deferral crunch. And it looks like we'll have to borrow money in May, and we'll have to repay it. It looks like we won't be able to repay it until maybe November. And this is a result of the state borrowing a big chunk of money from us in February, March, April, May, and June, and then sort of paying us back. Like the June money comes back in July, the May money comes back in August. On this kind of weird schedule, you'd think it would be first in, first out, but so the cash flow, we are going to have to borrow money. I will be borrowing cash from our Fund 25 and 26 in order to help with that cause and returning that money to those funds in whole once the cash crunch is over. But the deferrals that were reduced in the governor's new budget didn't impact the deferrals this year at all. It's all for next year. He still left one deferral in place. I'm hoping to get rid of that one too. But it's no instant relief for us, and we'll still have to borrow funds to be sure we can make our payroll in May and June. Major cuts are looming. I put together, I think we talked about it the last time I did a board budget presentation, looking at more than 3 years, especially with the funding cliff. So I put together a 5-year abbreviated multi-year projection, which we'll get to here in a sec. But it's going to show you that we have these couple of years of the hold harmless, where we're able to use the ADA from 1920, which was, for us a better year, to fund us for this year. And then we'll also be able to use this year's ADA, which is 1920's ADA, for funding for the following year. So for 21-22. But what happens is when we get into 22-23, the bottom falls out. We no longer have the hold harmless, and we're no longer looking back at 1920. Now we're looking back at 21-22, where we've lost a lot of kids in between here and there. So this creates a major reduction in our local control funding formula monies. And this is something that we're going to have to address pretty seriously. And, it'd be best to work on it now. And as we kind of get to these other slides, I'll show you those. Another piece of the puzzle, layering on top of COVID and all these crises, is that Stream Charter is planning on expanding their program by 270 students. Starting in the 22-23 school year, they're going to open 90 new seats in their school at the TK2 level. And then each year after that, for 6 years, they'll add 30 more seats each year for the following 6 years. The problem with this is, where do those kids come from? Stream is within our district, and typically we take, the kids come from Oroville City Elementary Schools when Stream expands. It's where they got most of their students when they opened. And also, there's something in the LCF formula called the charter shift. So if students go to Stream because they are a charter within our district, there is no hold harmless on the loss of ADA to Stream. So the day those kids go away, there is no looking back a year and using last year's instead. So we have an automatic reduction of 90 students in the charter shift in 22-23. So you imagine the revenue that 90 students generates, which is, $800,000 or so. So that's instantly occurs in the 22-23 school year. So this is should be a call to action for Oroville City Elementary School District. We should look at our charter school that's just expanding in our district and say, hey, how do we offer programs and services that don't make it so they automatically gain kids whenever they add new seats? How do we fight that off? And when we talk about the major cuts that are looming, we're working on a lot of different plans. I have the facilities use review committee reforming to see if there's anything we can do strategically with facilities to save money long term. Anything to do with facilities is long term because it takes 18 months for anything to happen because you have to go through so many steps. So we're starting that now so that in 3 years we'll be prepared for the reductions. Another thing I wanted to point out is we do have reductions to instructional staff in the budgets as we have reductions in ADA. But the reductions in instructional staff don't keep up with the reductions in LCFF funding. So imagine if you had a class of, ideally, let's say you had a class of 20 students, and let's say they bring in about $10,000 of revenue each. So that's a $200,000 revenue from that one class. A teacher's salary and benefits is not $200,000. Additionally, those 20 kids are probably not all in the same class at the same school. They're probably spread around the district in a variety of different places. So it takes quite a few students to leave the district before we're able to reduce any instructional salaries. So it just doesn't keep up. The loss of revenue is much greater than the amount of right sizing we can do with our instructional staff. So we have to look at other ways to fix it, right? What are the other ways to fix it? So it could be, reviewing what we're doing with different facilities, any variety of solutions. But the one I like to think about the most is, and I know one that Spencer and I talk about a lot, is how do we retain and draw in new students into Orville City Elementary School District? That's really the ultimate answer to our budget woes, is how do we engage parents? How do we provide the programs they're looking for so that people say, hey, you know what, I really want to go to these Orville City Elementary School District schools and not to a Stream charter school or a Palermo Union Elementary School or Durham, a private school, Thermalito. We have a lot of competition for such a small area. So we have to really start to think about how can we really start to compete and start taking back those kids. And that's really, it takes time, but we have one-time money from the local, not the local control funding formula, from the CARES money for COVID response that we can use for some of these things. So I think we really have an opportunity to try to shift the paradigm as a district that's losing students on a regular basis to maybe a district that's gaining students on a more regular basis.
Andrew, if I could just take a second to talk, and I will be in coming months sharing some more ideas that we're talking about so that we can recruit and retain our students here in our district. Tonight, you approved something that, with the development of the preschool and how we can funnel those kids directly into our schools as they become eligible for kindergarten. And we know that some of our neighboring districts have done that, and those kids stay there. And normally they would be ours in kindergarten, but because they get used to their surroundings and their schedules, they just funnel right into there. And so we want to start that same process, retaining our own kids and possibly catering to others. But there's other ideas that I'll be sharing with you that we can better compete with the neighboring districts, so that when parents have options, they're going to choose us first, and instead of other alternative programs. So thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, like Spencer was saying, opening a preschool is a huge deal, and it's a huge way to start to draw people back into our district. And that's what we want to do. Because I know we have really good high quality instruction, and high quality programs. And we just have to, maybe rethink the way we're presenting options or marketing, but we need to start getting aggressive when it comes to this, because I think we can start to turn that tide. I believe that we can. So on to the multi-year projection, which is most of what I've been talking about, because most of the budget changes had to do with the out years, the multi-year projection years. So if we look at the top of the multi-year projection assumptions, I wanted to kind of call this out specifically. You can see here's the funding cliff. So in this first column where we have unrestricted 2021, that's this year. So we're getting 23.7 million in LCFF funding. The next year it increases by 600,000. The following year it reduces by 3 million. And that's that funding cliff where our ADA goes down by 15%, including losing those students to stream and the students we've lost over the few years since the 1920 year, which is what we're using as the basis of ADA for all those years. And those of you who have been around a while who are looking at this going, hey, how come there's a change in funded ADA between 2021 and 21-22 of 1.2%? It has to do with that charter shift, because on a regular basis, we lose more students to stream than we gain. And that part isn't held harmless. So there is a little bit of a reduction due to the charter shift in our formula. The next item, and an item I always like to call out, as we talk about the net decrease in fund balance or deficit spending. As you can see in the first two columns, in this year and next year, because we have that hold harmless over ADA, we're doing pretty well. We're surplusing 1.5 million, surplusing 1.5 million again. But the next year, we're deficit spending $1.7 million, which is a big deficit. What that means is we're spending more money than we're bringing in. So we're using our reserves at that point to cover the difference. And here's that abbreviated 5-year multi-year projection. And you can see this at the bottom is this surplus deficit. You can see here's our surplus of 1.5 million again, 1.5 million. Then this year 3, it's $1.7 million deficit spending. Year 4, it's almost $2.5 million. And year 5 is $3.8 million of deficit spending. And then there were comments and things about the ending balance. I want to kind of talk through that as well. As you can see, we have a good ending balance right now of $5.8 million, followed by an increasingly good ending balance of $7.3 million in year 2. But you can see that quickly evaporates as we get into year 3, year 4, and year 5. Ultimately, we have a negative ending balance. So the prognosis is we have a long-term problem and we need to resolve it. Otherwise, we're going to end up in year 3 with a problem in that 5th year saying, hey, what are we going to do? So this is something I wanted to call out is, yes, we do have funds that we're surplusing and we're hanging on to them, and we're hanging on to them, on purpose so that we can use those to offset the deficits that are coming once the hold harmless is out of the way. So it's not that we're trying to hoard money. We're saving all the money we can and cutting everything we can and being strategic about spending as much as we possibly can, so that when it comes to that year 3 and year 4, we have a little bit of time to right the ship. So we're not looking at it right away. And that's the budget presentation. Do you have questions? No questions?
I don't have a question. I appreciate thank you for the presentation. I think I just want to reiterate what Spencer talked about sort of in the middle of the presentation, is that the need to really focus on what can we do to help stem that tide.
And I know it's late and I don't want to spend any more time talking about it, but there's a lot of things that we can do. And one of it has to do with what we're talking about tonight, is providing better infrastructure, doing a lot of things with our school sites to make them better looking, beautification, things like that I think are going to help us pull in new people that move in our area. And there's some other programs that we want to develop between now and in a couple of years, so that we can retain some of those kids. And some of these programs we believe that we can do quicker now that we have some extra CARES Act money and COVID money to kind of fund those things. So, but I won't take any more time tonight because I know it's late. But we're excited, and bottom line is we need to compete, and but there's a lot of pieces of that puzzle. Thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the 2021 second interim budget adjustments?
So moved.
Can I have a second to approve?
I second.
Pam, how do you vote?
Aye.
Sharon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye, the motion carries. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2021 second interim financial report.
So this is just the same thing again. I could do the presentation a second time if you want me to.
No, thank
No.
you. Basically, we have to explain the adjustments and then approve the entire report. Can I have a motion to approve?
Madam
Oh.
President,
Yes, ma'am.
Madam President, I would like to make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 second interim financial report.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Sharon, how do you approve? How do you vote?
Aye.
Pam, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jessica, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote aye, the motion carries. Before I adjourn, a couple quick reminders. Next meeting will be at City Hall. Keep an eye out for the special meeting concerning the facilities infrastructure, and don't forget your Form 700. Have a good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you, Madam President.
Thank you, everyone.